across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening, and I hope you're not too bleary-eyed if you stayed up for the England match. It'll shock you to learn that I did not, but well done England on winning 3-2. We'll talk about Donald Trump entering the fray, not perhaps a world expert on football, although he thinks he is, and he got a red card cancelled, now the cause of a huge furore. Speaking of furores, Nigel Farage is having trouble at the moment with Posh George, his sidekick, who is a convicted fraudster and someone who has been very close to him. There are lots of allegations about money that has been given to him and apparently not declared. We asked, like every other programme on this network, we asked for a Reform voice to speak this evening, and apparently no one was available. So you can read into that what you wish. Some people say it's a stitch-up. Others say there are real questions to answer. We'll get into all of that in just a minute. We'll also talk about Pride. Pride is the festival in London, the march and the festival that is meant to be inclusive and wonderful and say everybody can love who they want. Well, some people at Pride certainly don't love Jews, and dreadful, horrendous anti-Semitism has been shouted there at gay Jewish people. We'll look into that as well as a lot of other stories around that. We'll also speak again to Arif, who we spoke to on Friday. I don't know if you remember that particular discussion. He rang in and told us that the police, lots of stories about police overreach at the moment, the police contacted his home, spoke to his daughter about his son kicking a ball over a fence to prevent crime. Well, Arif and his son, who was 14 at the time, will be with us this evening. Loads to discuss. 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Be lovely to hear from you this evening. Whatever is on the tip of your tongue, I want to know. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us. Well, Donald Trump has confirmed he asked FIFA to review a foul in an America match, and the red card that has been cancelled as a result for Gianni Infante, a man who's no stranger to controversy himself, is a huge topic of worldwide discussion. Let's hear what the president himself has been saying about this.
And I'm a person that loves sports and was a good athlete, and I understand sports really well, really well. And that wasn't a foul. That wasn't even an infraction. That was two guys running full speed that happened to crash into each other. You can't take your foot and properly place it on somebody else's foot when you're going, no, these were two great athletes that got tangled up, and this referee, who is a little bit suspect, if you check his past. I don't want to say that because I don't like to create controversy, but very suspect.
Very suspect. A little bit suspect. Very strange, very strange. I know it's a serious matter, but there is a certain high camp element to some parts of Donald Trump. We'll discuss that a little bit later on in the programme. Just to tell you that the Duke of Sussex has apparently arrived in the UK. A spokesman for Harry has confirmed. I'm sure we're all very excited about that, and he can virtue signal and say all the things that he wants to say. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that in the programme if you want to. 0344 499 1000. I've no great desire to be brutally honest. But anyway, the big story politically anyway is whether Posh George could prove as fatal for Nigel Farage as Mandelson was for Starmer. This is a very interesting one. George Cardwell, a close friend and confidant of Nigel Farage, who wrote a co-authored a book called How to Launder Money, a crime he was actually convicted of in the United States. And Posh George is causing all sorts of problems for Nigel Farage at the moment. He's a 32-year-old aristocrat and one of the tightest members of Reform leaders' inner circle. Interestingly, Elisa in Chelmsford, who's a Reform supporter, has contacted me to say, I attended a Reform summer barbecue yesterday. The people were so friendly. The food was yummy, music, fab, heat, too much. But what struck me the most was how many people came up to me and stated how great it was to see me openly wearing my Star of David. They told me to keep wearing it with pride and how they were disgusted at how Jews were being treated in the UK. One woman told me that her husband was a Holocaust survivor and she converted to Judaism. I lost count of how many times I was approached with love. How do we get to a place where people suddenly thought me brave to openly wear my Star of David? What does it say about today's society? How people treat Jews says a lot about their character. And we will, of course, talk about that later on in the programme. But Posh George and the issues with George Cardwell, big investigative reporting by the Sunday Times. Lots of rejection of that reporting by Reform UK. They haven't said it's wrong necessarily, but Nigel Farage is apparently looking at legal action. I'd be very interested to hear what kind of legal action he would say. Kemi Badenoch has said in the last few minutes she would be surprised if this was the end of Nigel Farage. She was asked if Conservatives were preparing to fight a by-election in Clacton amid scrutiny of the Reform UK leader's finances and whether Mr Farage was finished. She told an event hosted by Politics UK, I would be surprised if this was the end of Nigel Farage. He's been hanging around politics for a very long time. He's had ups and downs. It's very clear he's going through a very difficult time, a quite difficult time, apologies. But I just see this as an indicator of what, if he ever got in, what a Nigel Farage government would look like. It would just be this over and over again, things not being reported, endless scandals, and I just think it would be chaos, she said. Interestingly, there has been a comment on this yesterday to Sky News from Robert Jenrick, who is, of course, the Treasury spokesman for Reform UK. This is what he told Sky News yesterday.
He's an old friend of Nigel's, and he supported him in the past before Nigel was even a Member of Parliament. He has no formal role within Reform whatsoever.
Is he paying for Mr Nigel Farage's security?
Well, I believe it says in the story that he isn't, but he supported Nigel before he became a Member of Parliament. So there's nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here, says Robert Jenrick. Well, if there's nothing to see, I would love to speak to a Reform UK representative. We've asked the party for someone this evening and we haven't been given one, and every show on this network today has asked for a Reform UK representative and no Reform UK representative has been on the network today. I would have a number of questions I'd like to ask either Nigel Farage or someone else. We haven't been given the opportunity to do so. David Maddox is the political editor of The Independent and joins me now. David, you're very welcome to the programme. How much of a problem is this for Nigel Farage, do you think?
I think it's a very big problem, and it kind of, you mentioned the Mandelson issue for Starmer, and you could talk about the Pincher issue for Boris Johnson. You know, quite often what does for political leaders is the people they choose for top jobs or choose to be in their inner circle. And, you know, Mandelson arguably is what finished off Keir Starmer. Chris Pincher is certainly what finished off Boris Johnson, that scandal way back. You know, and you know, the issues are piling up for Nigel Farage. I know from the conversations I've had that there are people in Reform who are concerned that he might walk away. There are people, you know, who believe it's certainly outside that he could walk away, that this will become insurmountable for him. And they're certainly sliding in the polls and all sorts of...
They're still ahead in the polls, though. The most recent polls have them at 5 percentage points ahead of Labour. I just want on the Conservatives as well, actually. Why is this particularly insurmountable in your view?
Well, I just think it's a question of judgment. I mean, I know Posh George Cottrell quite well. I mean, he's a very urbane and charming individual, but he is somebody with a huge amount of question marks around him. I mean, and some question marks which have been answered because he's been actually convicted of crimes in America. And, you know, there are all sorts of money issues there, undeclared donations. You know, this is somebody who is not just, you know, a member of Reform or, you know, part of the circle. This is the inner circle of Nigel Farage. It's one of his most trusted people. You know, he's quite a important decision maker in some ways in the party. He's one of the few people Nigel will actually listen to. And, you know, and this takes it beyond really the kind of normal scandal. I think in some ways it's worse than the question marks over the £5 million donation from Christopher Harborne.
It's interesting that the £5 million donation, I mean, that's been going on for a few weeks now. And it's interesting that, of course, there's a parliamentary standards inquiry into this. What do you think will happen with these allegations, David? Could there be a further inquiry, or could this be brought within the scope of the existing parliamentary standards inquiry?
I think it would have to be a separate inquiry into what's gone on there. But yeah, I mean, there could certainly be a parliamentary standards inquiry because he didn't declare it as a gift within the 12 months before he became an MP. But it could be, you know, electoral commission inquiries as well, because he was an active donee, as a registered donee, as a party member and an owner. Let's not forget, a part owner of a party. So, you know, he was active politically, and if he was receiving political support from George or whoever and not declaring it, then that's a problem.
Poppy Coburn from The Telegraph was on Jeremy's programme this morning. She has a little bit of support for Nigel Farage. I just want to get all sides of this, and perhaps we'll hear what she said to Jeremy this morning, and I'll ask you to react to that, David. Let's hear Poppy Coburn.
So there's Labour. They are turning around and now saying, Nigel Farage, look at him, look how dirty he is, look how dirty his party is. This is someone who's given up 25 years of his life to fight against the establishment, who has got more death threats than any other politician. You don't hear that in the news, seriously. If he has taken this money before he was an MP from someone where there is no suggestion whatsoever that he's changed his opinion, OK, Nigel Farage has been completely consistent politically
for 25 years.
For 25 years, for as long as I've been alive. He's known this person, a friend of his, for a very long time. This is not cash for questions, this is not cash for access, OK? This is someone basically saying, you're a friend and I need to support you because the state isn't stepping in and you're getting death threats. He can do with that money as he pleases, frankly. All of the stories that The Times is breaking as exclusive this weekend and the BBC is running on as exclusive breaking news is already out there. We've known this for years. Why is it coming up now? Why is it being repackaged now as breaking news?
David, what do you make of what Poppy Coburn said this morning to Jeremy?
I mean, she's not wrong, but there's a lot of whataboutery about that. You know, yes, it's true he's given up 25 years. He's also made a lot of money doing so. He's not a poor man, Nigel Farage isn't at all. And yes, he has fought the establishment at some cost to himself. And I've witnessed firsthand the threats to his life and all the rest of it. And I have huge sympathy for Nigel in that respect. I think he's been a substantial politician, possibly the most substantial in my career as a journalist. But that doesn't exclude him from having to obey the rules and for having to be transparent about who's giving him money, who's giving him gifts, who are the people pulling the levers behind the scenes, and all the rest of it. Why, for example, he's prioritised cryptocurrency as his main economic policy in the last 2 years, whilst receiving money from crypto billionaires. These are issues which he has to address like any other politician. And we were, all very much going after Keir Starmer and the Labour leadership when, it was Lord Ali's gift and all the rest of it. It's not like we treat anybody differently in the press. I'd like to believe that they're kind of being treated differently or persecuted in some ways. No, he's just been asked to be transparent and to, frankly, fess up to what he's doing.
David, thank you. That's David Maddox there, political editor of The Independent. And I think he makes a good point there. If you want to be Prime Minister of this country, which Nigel Farage does, there are always a lot of questions to answer. There's a level of scrutiny that is high, and the press and the media are going to do that. And I think it would be good to hear from Reform UK maybe on the show tonight or tomorrow. They're very welcome to come on, any representative, to answer these questions, just as, in fairness, Robert Jenrick did yesterday on the media. He's their Treasury spokesman. Amanda says, good evening, Peter. Regarding Nigel Farage, it's obvious the aim is to bring Nigel and Reform down. What the detractors forget is the huge numbers of the silent majority who will stay loyal to a man who has dedicated his political career to the country. Amanda, I don't think you're wrong that there is a silent majority, maybe a silent minority. Certainly the polls at the moment say that Reform UK are at 25%. They're doing better than any other political party, but clearly there are questions here and clearly there is an issue. I'm not sure it's bringing Nigel Farage and Reform down. Nobody, I mean, there have been 2 large biographies that have been written of Nigel Farage. He's had a 25-year political career, and yes, there are a lot of people who don't like him. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But I think this station, more than any other, I think Nigel Farage has a fair hearing, as do Reform UK. And I'm very proud that we have an even-handed manner in which we deal with, hopefully, all politicians. So it's... I would love to ask a number of questions, basically, and just get answers to them, quite frankly, and that's what I do as a journalist. The mainstream media and political establishment have lapsed into Farage derangement syndrome, says Paul. Thank you for that. I'm angry with talk, says Natasha, and all the naysayers really going for Nigel. Well, I don't carry a massive candle for Nigel as an individual. He and Reform really are our only hope if we are to try to stop the terrible rot in the country and reverse it, even if it only becomes a tiny bit. For God's sake, talk as being the global idiot for global socialism. Natasha, I would just ask you, if we don't know the detail about Reform UK, and if we don't know the detail about Nigel Farage, and he becomes Prime Minister without us asking the questions that we need to, well, I would point you towards Keir Starmer, where I think a lot of the media really failed. I would point you towards Andy Burnham, where I think a lot of the media are failing at this exact moment. I'm trying to get an interview with Andy Burnham and want to speak to his people and his government. Instead, he's answering questions on Reddit and ignoring almost every other broadcast journalist. He's done 1 interview with a broadcast journalist, 1, since he became MP for Makerfield, and he didn't do any interviews for about a week prior to that. So there's a lack of scrutiny there. I'm not saying we're necessarily the Great White Knight. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying there aren't questions that we would ask that are always fair or straightforward. But I do think that if you want to be Prime Minister of this country, you've got to put yourself in front of all sorts of scrutiny, parliamentary scrutiny, freedom of information scrutiny, journalistic scrutiny as well. And that would be the case for any political party. Good evening, says Trevor. If Nigel Farage was to walk away, it would be a great loss to democracy. But if he did, I really believe Rupert Lowe would fill the void. I still think so-called populism is for a massive victory, hence why the left seem determined to try to destroy it. Becca says, comparing Farage to the Mandelson scandal, I've heard it all now, and I don't even support Reform. Alex in Cardiff says, I think Reform HQ is in chaos. The press and other parties won't stop, but it appears the parliamentary rules have been broken. Nigel doesn't have a thick skin, and I feel he holds grudges. It's strange they normally put someone up for interview. I think we're witnessing the end of Reform. He's good at starting parties like UKIP and Brexit, and the Brexit Party, but it's obvious he's very difficult to work for and with. Otherwise, Ben Habib or Rupert Lowe would be still working with him. Running a government isn't one man. You need many talented people, and I don't believe Farage likes the limelight on anyone other than himself. And Richard in Leicester says, Peter, why on earth would Reform want to talk? You consistently put them down. I can see which side you're on. Well, I don't think I'm on anybody's side. I am certainly politically homeless at the moment. It's no secret I used to work for the Conservatives, but they're a very different party to the one I worked for. And I think that I would hope anyway that the many Reform UK politicians that I've interviewed over the last 5.5 years would say I'm a fair interviewer. They may not, but I can't remember any sort of serious complaints anyway. But Richard, thank you for your point nonetheless. We'll go to the debate desk next with the broadcaster and meteorologist Joe Wheeler and the head of content at Politics Joe, Sean Hickey. I'd love to hear from you as well. Maybe you think I'm talking nonsense. Maybe we should leave Nigel Farage alone. Whatever your thoughts on this, please let me know. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer, talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Linda, who says, who's contacted me from Worcester and says, regarding Nigel Farage, we've been given the nub of it now from David Maddox. Yes, he's given up 25 years to politics and he's made a lot of money out of it. He's a rich man. David from The Independent, being the party of the left-wing hit squad with politics, if you envy. Well, David spent a lot of time working for The Express as well, so maybe he's not the quite as much of a lefty as you think, Linda, but nonetheless, he did make those points, as you correctly say. Let's hear what Tristan has contacted us with a voice note. You can send these in on WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000. This is what Tristan says.
This situation with Nigel Farage is just escalating, and the minute the media has its teeth in you, it will just grind and grind and grind until you do submit, basically. What he should do is, he should just admit that he was in the wrong and then say that he's thought about it, and what he's going to do is he's going to give part of that $5 million to charity. That's what I think he should do, and that would totally diffuse this whole situation, and the press will really look stupid, to be honest with you.
Tristan, thank you. Jason in the Lake District says the Farage coverage from Talk is becoming tedious. It's not worth fixating on, in my opinion. You'll lose listeners if you're over-reporting on it. And Dave in Litchfield says, as a Reform member, please keep up the scrutiny on all parties as people forget that integrity is key. My vote has to be done on fact. Well, Joe Wheeler is with us, the meteorologist and political commentator. Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to see you. And we're also joined on the debate desk as well by Sean Hickey from Politics. Joe, hello, sir.
Good to see you. I thought you forgot my name there.
No,
for
of course
second.
not. You're a complete original. No, I was thinking about Nigel Farage. I wasn't about to call you Nigel Farage, though. That's the thing. Joe, you came down on the train from Lincolnshire, and I understand it wasn't the most comfortable journey.
Oh, they got the heating on. It was something else, honestly. I got
the heating on the train?
No, they definitely had the
That's
heating on. By the time I got
crazy.
off the train, and it's about 30-odd degrees here, yes, it was cool. It was stand outside and try and cool down, so goodness only knows what the temperature was on the train.
It's just going to get hotter this week as well, isn't it? It's going to get. We're in the third heat wave of the year, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
And is that just for the south of Britain, or is that elsewhere as well?
No, it's the Azores high. It's extending up. It'll eventually push the rain out of Scotland. They'll be glad about that, because at the moment they're looking at some significant rainfall totals. And by Wednesday, they should see some sunshine, even if it's only briefly, and those higher temperatures are expanding. However, it's not as hot, nor is it as humid as the previous one. The difference is it may be longer lasting.
OK. How long do we think it's going to be?
Well,
in the meantime?
certainly till the end of the week, and it could push on beyond that.
OK, all right. Well, we will power through. On the big political story of this evening, Joe, I wonder, are we going too hard on Nigel Farage? There are all these revelations, there are all these allegations. He said he's very annoyed by it. He's rejected them, but he hasn't given evidence to say why they're wrong necessarily. I wonder what you think.
Well, I think the issue here is obviously reputational damage. We saw what happened with Mandelson and Starmer's connection to him. We saw what happened with Lord Ali and Starmer's connection to him, although that all kind of vanished one way or another. And ultimately, if parliamentary rules have been broken, then yes, there should be consequences. But equally well, if they weren't, then leave it alone. I'm sorry, all political parties receive money for certain things at certain times, regardless of who the person is. And OK, if that person is less than savoury, it's unfortunate, but if nothing's been done wrong, then it's not an issue.
John, I'm not going to ask you for your weather forecast, don't worry. But speaking of high pressure, is Nigel Farage under more pressure than he has been previously?
Oh, massively, yeah. I mean, just before the Makerfield by-election, a lot of people were talking about whether it was going to be the last by-election he was going to be in charge of Reform UK for. I think...
Do you really think he could go? Is it that serious?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, for the last year, the Reform Party have been recruiting from the Conservative Rejects retirement home to put them into the Reform Party to give it some sort of legitimacy. And if there's anybody in the world of British politics that has any experience of killing their kings, it's the Conservative Party.
Yes.
So, I mean, when you look at people like Suella Braverman or Robert Jenrick or Nadim Zahawi.
I think they're perhaps just waiting in the wings, waiting for the king to...
I mean, we were up in Makerfield not so long ago, and we were talking to potential Reform voters there, and a lot of people that were voting Restore instead of Reform for that election, that were turning around to say, well, actually, I do think that Nigel Farage is going to go and someone like Zia Youssef is going to take over.
It's interesting in that Nigel Farage is both an asset and a liability. He's probably one of the best known politicians in the UK. He's one of the most successful politicians in the UK. He's been incredibly consequential. But is he now turning into a liability, Joe? Is that too harsh a phrase to use?
I'm not sure whether liability is the right phrase. However, we have a situation, as occurred in Makerfield, where we've got a split right. Yeah, and at some point, these have to amalgamate to give a realistic right option for voters. And at the moment, I can't see Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage rubbing along particularly well. And so, in the end, somebody's going to have to go. And there's going to have to be some kind of knitting together, because otherwise we're just going to remain in this situation where Labour could still win, potentially, a general election because the right is split.
Do you think that's realistic, that Restore and Reform UK could come together, Sean?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think there's too much water under. There's too much water under the bridge between the two. And then, as well, as I'm saying, you're talking about people like Jenrick, Youssef, waiting in the wings in the Reform Party. If they turn around to Rupert Lowe,
could Reform UK survive post Farage? Could it be?
Well, that's the big question.
We look at what it was. I mean, Richard Tice, when he was leader, for example, Reform UK just wasn't nearly the electoral force it was with Nigel Farage.
It was a lame duck before Nigel Farage came along. Now, Nigel Farage was still waiting in the wings of the Reform Party while Richard Tice was in charge of it. We should remember that he was never away from British politics. You know, the time that Reform UK was established, he had just come out of the jungle, having kind of tested the water to see how his politics were going to work in the popular culture sphere. Now he's in charge of Reform UK. I don't really see whether the voters of Reform UK are going to be wanting him out, because he's the entire appeal of the Reform.
But also, it may be the appeal to the people who are voting for them already. But the problem is, of course, the 75% of people who don't want to vote for Reform UK as well, Joe.
Well, as I say, it's very, very difficult, because at the moment you've got two options on the right. Well, you've got three if you conclude the Conservatives, who I don't realistically think have a chance. And then
Kenny Badnock's doing quite well at the moment as well.
She is, and actually I have a huge amount of respect for her. But you know, having been around a little longer than you have, you know.
She says, touching him in the arm.
A little longer than you have. You know, I think your traditional Conservative voter have lost confidence, you know, big time, and therefore are looking to another party, something new, something fresh, and something unsullied. And I think that's possibly the worst thing about this, that you get an unsavoury figure on the peripheries, and you get somebody then defending, you know, a donation and how it's been used. And I think that kind of leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
I think as well with this, the controversy this weekend wasn't even about the Christopher Harborne donation. It was about something entirely different.
Yeah, it was George Cottrell, certainly. Elaine's been in touch and says Nigel should have just declared it, so he had the moral high ground, but he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. They would still have gone after him with the same allegations. By the time of the next election, this country will be in such a bad state. The Tories can't be trusted. People who voted Labour all their lives are saying they will never vote for them again. Reform are the only ones saying the same stuff from day one that needs to be done, and people are willing to take a chance on them no matter what. Dave in Bristol says, another lefty zealot on your programme, all the brickbats being thrown at you for your anti-Farage approach. Am I an lefty zealot, Dave? Is Joe I don't think anyone's ever mistaken Joe for a lefty zealot. Is Sean the lefty zealot? I mean, what we try to do in the debate desk is have a process of elimination. Sorry, Sean. But I mean, the point, the clues in the title, it's debate desk. We don't want people saying the same things all the time. Otherwise, that would be very boring indeed. We're not going to have the agreement desk, the consensus desk. That's not what we have. Listen, we'll talk talk more about other issues as well. The police must stop engaging in woke culture wars, according to a major report. David Blunkett, the former Home Secretary, has been involved with that. Jewish revellers abused at the London Pride and told to go back to your Zionist homeland. Wegovy weight loss pill goes on high street sale, and senior doctors now, consultants, are voting in favour of strike action. Lots to discuss after the break on the debate desk on the Evening Exchange with Joe and indeed with Sean. Just check your name again, Sean there. Will stay with us here on Talk and get your call in as well. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Dawn, who says reform our only hope. We can't have another 5 years of Labour because the UK is already on life support. The left always try to bring the right down. Look at France. Charlotte in Cambridge says, you say if you want to be Prime Minister you need to answer questions. What about the likely next Prime Minister, Andy Burnham? He's set to swan in, elected by less than 1% of the UK, and face questions on Reddit from teenagers picking and choosing his questions. This is a farce. I'm furious and utterly depressed. Charlotte, I am totally with you on this 100%. I said it a few minutes ago. I don't expect everybody to listen to every single moment of the show. Don't worry, Charlotte. But I said this, I think it's outrageous that Andy Burnham hasn't subjected himself to more scrutiny. He's done one broadcast interview for about 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes. He's on the Reddit thing. He hasn't done anything else since he's been elected as a MP for Makerfield. We need to hear a lot more from him about what he's going to do, but of course he's probably home and about because it doesn't look as if there are anybody else actually standing against him. Leslie says Starmer's demise had nothing to do with the Madison case. His demise was because his MPs knew the voters detested him. I think I probably disagree with you on that, Leslie, but thanks for your message as always. Anne in Archway says, while I do support and respect Nigel, reform is not one person. It's a place where like-minded people come together to protect our nation, says Anne in Archway in London. Right, we're going to leave Nigel Farage just for the meantime because I want to talk about the police and a big report that is out of commission looking at leadership. Listen to this statistic. I didn't know this until today. There have been 47 investigations into alleged misconduct by chief officers since 2018. 47 investigations, including for cronyism, nepotism, abuse of power for sexual purposes and corruption. 8 chief constables or former chief constables are either under investigation or awaiting disciplinary proceedings. That is astonishing. 8 chief constables or former chief constables either under investigation or awaiting disciplinary proceedings. So a big report out today calling for a reset of police culture after finding evidence of ineffective and corrupt leadership, nepotism, poor training and a lack of support for frontline officers. But there's no two-tier policing, of course. That's all nonsense from us, according to Keir Starmer. Rubbish from him. This is what Lord Blunkett, now David Blunkett, was the Home Secretary under the Blair administration. This is what he had to say.
So I don't think people would expect the police to take the knee, not because they might not be deeply empathetic, but because that's not the job. Their job is to be absolutely scrupulously independent, whether it's of waving flags or whether it's taking the knee or whatever else it might be, wearing badges. That's not the job. The job is to prevent crime, to protect people and to prosecute where necessary. We spent 9 months. Nick Herbert was the former Conservative Police Minister, now Chair of the College of Policing. He said, would I do this? I said, I'll do it jointly with you 9 months ago. It's been a hell of a task. More in the last 9 months about the police than I did in the near 4 years I was Home Secretary, partly because things are hidden from you, partly I think things have actually seriously got worse. So we've got a task, and it's a task that benefits the police and all those serving in it, because they want good leaders, they want honest, decent promotion prospects, they want to be treated well, and the public want exactly the same. So there's no divide here between what's good for the public, us, and what's good for the policing service. These things go together. I want future Home Secretaries to be able to go in and people to tell them the truth and not find that afterwards they're done over on the back of it.
David Blunkett speaking to Ian Collins a little bit earlier on. What do you make of this report, Sean?
I mean, I'm kind of confused about how it's all packaged. You're talking about a report that says that there is questions around nepotism in the police service. There are questions about abuse of power in the police service. There are questions over the people that get promoted in the police service are the right people to be in superintendent or constable jobs. But yet the top line is whether people are waving flags or taking the knee. Like, I don't need to go that far into
I think it's all of it. I think it's all of it together.
Absolutely. But the top line being talking about something that was happening in 2020, I think is quite a strange way to be packaging the entire thing. I mean, we're talking, like, the first page of this entire report is about Sarah Everard and about the abuse of power that someone like Wayne Couzens has had. You just mentioned a couple of the instances where there's 8 current senior police
current
officers.
Reformer, yeah.
That are under investigation. These are the issues with the police force, I think, rather than whether or not they have a flag on their uniform or whether they have...
Although the point, it's all related, I would argue, in that what you want is independence and without fear or favour. And it's not that I have anything against Pride marches. I've taken part in Pride marches in Northern Ireland previously. This is something that when the police are taking part in them, I don't think they should, for example, because I think they're independent. I think there's a very live political debate about the trans issue, for example, and that is a matter of political controversy. I would argue the police shouldn't take part in Pride at the moment anyway, because it's not a neutral thing. Similarly, when it comes to the culture wars, that is, again, it's independence, it's neutrality. I mean, is that something you got out of this, Joe, yourself?
Well, I found the headline on this was divisive. You know, police must stop engaging in woke culture wars. That's enough to get, you know, half the population getting really, you know, riled up about stuff. Whereas, in fact, what Lord Blunkett said was that there were problems with poor leadership, bureaucracy, nepotism and inconsistent training and loss of focus. And the police should not be seen to be taking sides in political, cultural debates. And this comes back to the two-tier policing, because right at the moment, I think the public do see the police are tougher on some protests than others, protests or protesters. Groups and communities appear to receive different treatment, and perception that the law isn't being applied equally seems to be, you know, pretty widespread. And until those things are addressed, and honestly addressed, you know, as in we accept that the public are seeing things like this. Yes, we are going to address it this way. Yeah, I don't think the public is going to be satisfied.
Isn't policing always political to some degree? You look at Maccabi Tel Aviv, for example, in Birmingham, and I think that was disgraceful that was done behind closed doors, and the police essentially said that Maccabi Tel Aviv fans couldn't go there. Now, it was eventually a decision by the club itself, but that was always going to be a political issue. Are the police just caught in the crossfire here?
To a degree. I mean, we've also had issues of certain Jewish people being in a part of a town or a city where they've been asked to move by the police for their own safety. Now, that's a very difficult one, because ultimately anybody should be able to walk anywhere. If they themselves do not pose a threat to the community, why shouldn't they be walking? Why shouldn't they be there? Yeah, the answer is, if the people that are there, as in a protest or a demonstration of some description, makes it dangerous for them to be there, should the police be removing that person, or should they be dispersing that group?
Yeah, and if you have 1,000 protesters and you have 2 Jewish people, the police may well say, well, look, we've got 1,000 protesters. They're probably going to be well behaved, but they might not be. You have 2 Jewish people here for their own safety. They can go. I mean, it shouldn't happen. It's dreadful that it happens. It's awful.
Shouldn't.
But if you're looking at, do we go in and arrest 1,000 people who may or may not break the law, or do we ask 2 people to move on? What do you actually do? So I think there's a lot of two-tier policing, but I feel some sympathy for the police in this. I don't feel sympathy for the police where there is, for example, corruption or nepotism or cronyism or whatever. But he is talking, Lord Blunkett, talking about nepotism, talking about he wants just 13% of constables, 70% of sergeants surveyed for the report agreed they worked in a well-led and managed organisation. 13% of constables. I mean, that is absolutely damning. This is not the this is not the public thing here. This is the constables themselves.
Absolutely.
Sean.
Yeah. And I mean, as I said earlier on, when you're talking about how you train these senior officers as well, that needs to come into question, where you can't, and it needs to apply to any line of work, not just policing, that it's not always the person that's been there for the longest.
Yes.
That's the best person to be a manager of people or to be able to...
Some people are just rubbish managers.
But particularly when it comes to the police force, I mean, the scenario that you guys were talking about a second ago of if there's 2 Jewish people and a protest where the Jewish people feel threatened by the people that are protesting, is it right for the police to turn around and say, you can't walk here because we can't guarantee your safety? No, it's the duty of the senior officers to guarantee the safety of both groups.
Yeah.
The right to assembly and the right to free
that may
movement.
not be possible because sometimes
it should be possible, though, as well.
But I'll tell you what, we've had a situation in the last week. Photographer Alistair Hilton, tweeted something which he very deliberately kept
below the line,
low-key and below the line.
That.
The police accepted that. Yeah, at the same time, his daughter, who lived on a neighbouring houseboat, had a window smashed at 3 in the morning. Yeah, the police did not come to one incident, but they sent 2 police officers to confront him in a pub about what he'd said. Even though he'd actually done nothing wrong.
They also sent 2 police officers for a 14-year-old who was kicking a football, which in theory could have caused criminal damage, but did not. We're speaking to his dad and the 14-year-old later on in the programme, because the dad rang in on Friday and we thought there's more to this. We've got to get the full story, so we're speaking to them a little bit later on. Lots of people in touch about Nigel Farage, and a lot of people saying, well, hold on a second, Leila Cunningham, who is the Reform UK candidate for Mayor of London, was on another network a little bit earlier on this evening. We did ring her and asked her to join us on this programme, Leila Cunningham. She declined that invitation totally politely and reasonably, and maybe she's got something else to do, that's fine. But the point stands that Reform UK have been asked on every single programme on this network so far today, and they have not put up a representative to be questioned and to take questions about this Nigel Farage controversy. Now, that is their prerogative to do it. We have no right, nor does any other broadcast or journalistic organisation, to demand this. This is not what they have to do. That is their strategy. That is fine. That's okay. But I'm just pointing it out to our viewers and listeners so everybody's on the same page. Deborah in Essex says, I'm sick to death of the constant harassment Nigel Farage is facing. If MPs across all parties were scrutinised at the same level, the dirt would be unbelievable. They're scared of him, plain and simple. He's not an idiot. He'll have every detail nailed down and will come out of this smiling. These people need to watch themselves, because without proper information, they're headed straight into defamation. Look at Trump taking the BBC to court for false claims. It's the same pattern. I'm tired of it. The country deserves more. Well, Deborah, certainly Nigel Farage has said that he is thinking about legal action. To my knowledge, those claims have not been refuted so far. Again, another reason why I'd love a Reform person on my programme this evening. Michael in Hollywell says, I think Talk should stand stoutly behind Nigel. He's a flag bearer for the right. The right-wing press should be doing their investigations following the money with the Chinese embassy, the Chagos deal, boat arrivals. Come on, why are we on the defensive? Well, we cover those areas on other many other programmes as well. Why doesn't Burnham under more scrutiny? Is far more of a threat and a danger to the country than his dodgy anti-democratic prime ministerial appointment than Nigel's donation from a friend. Sue, we talk about Burnham a lot. In fact, we were criticised last week for talking about him too much. Dawn says, reform our only hope. We cannot have another 5 years of Labour. Thank you as well to Leila Cunningham. Yeah, Leila Cunningham, a person mentioning that. That's fine. And yeah, of course, she was on another network, but she wasn't on this network. And I'd very happily have an interview with Leila Cunningham or any other member of the High Command of Reform UK. They're very welcome to come on. I'm on until 10 o'clock, and if they want to have a chat, that's absolutely fine. One more before the break. Alex says, I think writing off Kemi Badenoch is a mistake. Remember the majority Theresa May lost when she went to the electorate. 3 years as an aeon in politics. I know it seems like an impossibility that Tories could win the next general election, but look at the majority Boris had and thought he would be there for a decade. Same with Starmer, a massive majority, but lost his backbenchers and has to go. I think in 2 years we will have a better idea of the next government. Alex, I think you're absolutely right. Things can change very, very quickly. We'll have a break now. I'll take some calls, of course, very, very soon. 0344 499 1000, and we'll chat to Joe and indeed to Sean about all debate desk matters. I'd love to hear from you as well. Do get your call in. 0344 499 1000.
Most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch. We'll take some calls very, very soon, but we're on the debate desk with Sean and Joe. Let's talk about senior doctors, this time consultants, voting in favour of strike action. Here we go again, Sean.
Oh, it's silly, isn't it? Where we've got a country now where it's just a consistent problem of the standard of living being reduced for everybody at the bottom and at the middle. And people like... Can you imagine being a doctor and feeling like you need a pay rise?
I mean, consultants earn a lot of money.
But we're seeing an erosion of living standards across the board.
Yes.
Luckily, people like doctors and consultants have the means, have the unions that are strong enough to be able to fight their corner for them. I think everybody should be able to, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a bin collector, you should have a union to be able to fight your corner the way the consultants have the BMA to fight theirs.
The BMA say this is a clear message from consultants in England that they're not willing to tolerate the continued attack on their pay and professional value, and that if necessary they're willing to act. James Murray, the Health Secretary, said there's no justification for strikes given consultants are some of the highest paid public sector staff and among the top 2% of earners in the country. Joe, what do you make of this?
Well, they've had a 28.5% increase in basic starting pay over the last 4 years. Good for them, because I can tell you
That'd
something.
be nice.
Yeah, in this industry, nothing like.
The average consultant earns over £152,000 a year. That'd be nice.
Yeah, well, Andy Burnham's going to have an awful lot of that, isn't he? I mean, you know, however much they get in a raise, an awful lot of that's going to go in tax. The only point that made me stop and think for a minute was the fact that the final pay point of consultant in England is 16 grand lower than that of colleagues in Wales. Now, I do think that's an unfair disparity. I think, you know, within the UK and Ireland, that there should be, you know, some kind of a benchmark, and we go, OK, we're working towards that.
There's London waiting as well, which will bring it up in the capital as well. But
it will.
No, it should. I mean, this is the problem with devolution, where people do individual deals with devolved administrations, and then there's not the same pay disparity. So you can be in Wrexham on one side of the Welsh border, and then you can be in Cheshire on the other side at a very good hospital there, and you're not being paid the same thing for the same job.
Which then generates dissatisfaction. It's quite interesting, because we've had another news story today about the fact that AI is about to start taking over, you know, triaging patients.
See what you did there? Yep.
And for a long time, that I think has been on the cards, that actually nurses or nurse practitioners could be in a position to actually refer people to more specialists.
I'm a bit worried about this. I know one GP reasonably well who says that, you know, all these people saying you should go to a pharmacist, for example, I should try to get diagnosed elsewhere. I went to a pharmacist, I had some spots on my underarm. I will spare you the details. Some spots on my underarm. And
description only.
That's enough. No, well, they're not there anymore. But I went to the pharmacist. Pharmacist said, I think you might have shingles. Which is very serious. Yeah. And it's not fun having shingles. And I was quite worried. And then sent literally a picture of it to my GP friend and said, you definitely don't have shingles, not an issue, it's probably something to do with
your deodorant or whatever.
Something to do with that. Yeah. She prescribed she did me a private prescription for free, which is very kind of her, for a little ointment thing, put that on, all fine. And I mean, that's just one experience, that's just one person, but I do worry about this. I mean, we should be able to see a doctor in this day and age, but of course they're asking for more and more money, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, look, you have this consistent thing where you have, whether it's AI, what you were talking about, Joe, or whether you have the humongous queues for, or the waiting list rather, in X part of London, Y part of Glasgow, Z, like it's a lottery, you know, it's a postcode lottery when you come to things like this. I personally have never had an issue waiting for a doctor's appointment. I think if people are having issues getting a doctor's appointment.
You always got a doctor's appointment every time you've wanted one?
Within a week, yeah.
OK.
Yeah. I've actually got one at the end of this week.
He is of an age where he needs one every 6 years.
Well, I was surprised. I rang my surgery. I really needed a doctor's appointment about a year and a half ago, and I thought, I'm never going to get one. And they did the thing where they said, we'll ring you back. Pressed the button and said, ring me back. Rang me back 10 minutes later and said, can you come in an hour? You know, it was great.
Yeah, I think that bit is very good.
On a Monday morning?
These telephone triages are very good, and I've had the same thing. You know, spoken to them, they've said, right, come now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had an issue last year, and a water skiing injury.
All right. It's all right for some.
Nasty pop, and a muscle kind of came disattached from my skeleton, and I was referred for an X-ray. Turned up at the weekend at this diagnostic centre, but they got young people in, and they said, we can't do that bit, we'll have to do your knee. And it's like, but I haven't injured that. Okay, never mind.
Take an X-ray of it anyway. Yes. Take an X-ray of it anyway.
That's basically what happened, and it was like, well, we haven't sorted the problem, but, you know, it's a nice picture of my knee. Thank you very much.
Well, you lovely knees. You really do.
You could send it to his GP and they would have told you what was wrong with it.
Well, there was a problem with it. Or the pharmacist who would have got it wrong. Tell us about Wegovy, the weight loss pill going on sale on the high street. Sean, what do you think of this? I mean, none of the three of us, I mean, I'm not, maybe Jo Wheeler is, she could do everything else, but I don't think you have a medical degree. But I don't think any of us is a medical expert. But, I mean, Wegovy and these weight loss drugs, I'm quite worried about the long-term side effects, but now the weight loss pill going on high street sale, what do you make of this?
But I mean, even the side effects whilst you're taking them, you know? Like a lot of these things, I know people very close to me that are on these kinds of weight loss drugs, and I mean, talked through whether it's in Ireland, I don't know too much about the UK, but in Ireland you're talked through very extensively about the side effects for things like this, especially when it came to the jabs that were coming from the United States. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head now, but at that time it was highest bidder. Ozempic is what I'm thinking of. Highest bidder was the one that was getting those ones. So it didn't matter whether it was a GP, whether you phoned up or took a photo of whatever you needed to get rid of and sent it to your GP and got it through. But I mean, I think for a lot of these things there needs to be a lot more investigation, a lot more.
But they're available now, aren't they, Joe? Anybody can, well, not anybody, but almost anybody can just about get these, and certainly if you can pay for them, you can get them. I mean, there's a lot of prescription online as well. Are you worried about that?
Yes, I am. I have a friend who has taken these and ended up in hospital. I'm not entirely sure that the two things were related, let me put it that way. But I do not think that buying anything online is a particularly good idea, and this kind of thing worries me anyway. They say
a two-tier health system as well, where rich people can afford to be thin and poor people can't? Well, can afford the drugs, can afford the weight loss drugs.
Can afford the
we can all afford to be thin or fat.
Yes, I was going to say, but, you know, something that creates this kind of weight loss is not a good thing. Over the years, you know, we've had various diets that have come up, and some of them have dramatic weight loss, but, of course, the first thing that you lose when you lose weight is muscle. And that's heart muscle, usually, which leads to heart attacks and heart problems.
Or you get Simon Cowell's face, which is an undesirable thing as well.
I think probably quite a lot of money was paid for that.
Yes, indeed. But it did kind of collapse. He's had it all filled in, apparently.
Yeah, but I mean, we know of quite a lot of people on the television who've taken this stuff, and I mean, quite apart from the ghastly side effects, you know, there are some success stories. But the trouble is, you need to trade whatever it is you're eating now.
Yes.
You know, this drug.
Well, unless you change it, unless you change your diet dramatically, if you just keep eating the same stuff, it's not going to help.
Exactly, because you're not going to get the vitamins and nutrients you need.
Just in the final minute, did either of you stay up to watch the football?
No, but I'm learning Norwegian at this
You're
point.
learning Norwegian, right, OK. Whoever's against England, you're happy enough to support that.
You know, Eric Harland's caught your eye.
Exactly.
I bet he's caught your eye as well, Joe.
I know who he is.
Yes, certainly. Well, that's happening, of course, on Saturday. And what will the weather be like for the England match then? Because we know all these storms were making it worse.
Still the potential for storms. Exactly the same. July and August in Mexico. Storm City. Yeah.
It's in Miami, though, apparently.
Sorry. Well, actually, they've also got storms.
They've got storms.
And I'm running this 30-second rule because I was saying about Mexico City, 1970, 1986, when the World Cup final was played there, they had the same weather issues, but they didn't have the lightning detectors and they didn't have the 30-30 rule.
Ah, very interesting. OK, well, thank you both very, very much indeed. Joe Wheeler, broadcaster and meteorologist, weather at the start and at the end of that debate. As Sean Hickey, Head of Content and Politics. Joe, who knows absolutely nothing about weather forecasting, but quite a lot about other things as well. So thank you both to them. Let me know your thoughts on everything we're talking about this evening, whether it's about Nigel Farage or whatever else you want to talk about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. I'll take some calls in a minute or two. We'll also talk about the police and their woke culture wars, this major report. Former Metropolitan Police Superintendent will join us in just a second and let me know your thoughts on it too. Lots around this evening. Let's have a lively show between 9 and 10.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just gone 8 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for all your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes this evening, even the ones criticising me and the station. You're very welcome to keep sending them in, and we will take calls this hour. We didn't have time last hour because there was a lot to get through, but certainly the Farage problem and the donations by Posh George are a big political story today. We're also talking about a major report about the police and calls from Lord Blunkett, David Blunkett. He spoke to Ian Collins a little bit earlier on today, saying that woke policing must go. What do you think about that? We'll talk as well this hour, as well as taking your calls, texts and tweets, about pro-Palestinian parents launching a campaign against the school anti-Semitism review. What on earth are they afraid of? Maybe it's just because some of them might be anti-Semitic. Jewish people are sneaky, according to some NHS staff who have had some ludicrous and horrific anti-Semitic racism. A damning maternity report revealing what a family of an NHS staffer told them. We'll also talk about Pride as well, and Jewish revellers there being discriminated against. Also, we'll speak to the father whose 14-year-old was visited by two policemen for kicking a football over a fence. We did this story. He rang in on Friday. We've got Arif and his son who are on the air with us in Vision this evening. There's so much to talk about on all of that as well. Also, the doctor's strike. Plenty of people getting in touch too. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get your voice on the air. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note if you would, or send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. Just been having a look at some of the tweets during the break as well, and Kevin Cook says, you say Farage has questions to answer, but where are the questions around Burnham and his appointment without serious questioning as Prime Minister? Why aren't the mainstream media pushing to interview the man who will be in charge of running the country? Farage isn't in government. Burnham will be. Let me tell you, just because Burnham isn't on our programmes doesn't mean we're not asking all the time. I've been asking Burnham's people for weeks to get him on this programme. I would very happily interview Andy Burnham. They will have hundreds of requests from journalists up and down the country, and indeed in other parts of the world as well, to interview Andy Burnham. It is his team's decision not to do the interviews, and I will say, although Reform UK haven't put anybody up for this programme this evening, or indeed this station today, they have probably more than any other party put people up for my programmes in the past, and I'm grateful for them to do so, and I would call on them and ask them, as we have been doing behind the scenes, to come on this programme tonight, or indeed tomorrow night, because I do feel that Nigel Farage has questions to answer. We did hear, though, from Robert Jenrick, his Treasury spokesman. He spoke to Sky News yesterday about this controversy, and this is what he told Trevor Phillips on Sky News.
He's an old friend of Nigel's, and he's supported him in the past before Nigel was even a member of Parliament. He has no formal role within Reform whatsoever.
Is he paying for Mr Nigel Farage's security?
Well, I believe it says in the story that he isn't, but he supported Nigel before he became a member of Parliament. So there's nothing to see here.
That is Robert Jenrick. Someone's been in touch, says Peter Cardwell says he's politically homeless. Yeah, that is correct. When he's worked for the Conservatives in the past, yes, I said all that earlier on in the programme. That is all matter of public record. He fills on Times Radio all the time. Perhaps Peter isn't coming clean on this issue. He's always filling on Times Radio. I rest my case. I'm not sure why you rest your case just because I present on another network which is owned by the same company. I fill in sometimes when people are off there. I don't know what that means about my political leanings. I will ask Nigel Farage exactly the same questions I would ask Andy Burnham if he was in the same position, or Kemi Badenoch or anyone else. They're all very, very welcome to come onto my programme, and we will return to that story. But I want to talk about something else just at the moment, and that is about the police, and they must stop engaging in woke culture wars. This is according to a major report. Nick Herbert, who's the former policing minister, has been part of it, as has David Blunkett, Lord Blunkett, who spoke to my colleague Ian Collins a little bit earlier on today about the report and about what Lord Blunkett, a former Home Secretary, thinks the police should be these days.
said, I don't think people would expect the police to take the knee, not because they might not be deeply empathetic, but because that's not the job. Their job is to be absolutely scrupulously independent, whether it's of waving flags or whether it's taking the knee or whatever else it might be, wearing badges. That's not the job. The job is to prevent crime, to protect people and to prosecute where necessary. We spent 9 months. Nick Herbert was the former Conservative Police Minister, now Chair of the College of Policing. He said, would I do this? I said, I'll do it jointly with you 9 months ago. It's been a hell of a task. More in the last 9 months about the police than I did in the near 4 years I was Home Secretary, partly because things are hidden from you, partly I think things have actually seriously got worse. So we've got a task, and it's a task that benefits the police and all those serving in it, because they want good leaders, they want honest, decent promotion prospects, they want to be treated well, and the public want exactly the same. So there's no divide here between what's good for the public, us, and what's good for the policing service. These things go together. I want future Home Secretaries to be able to go in and people to tell them the truth and not find that afterwards they're done over on the back of it.
That is Lord Blunkett there. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Kevin Hurley. He's a former Metropolitan Police Superintendent. Kevin, what do you make of this report?
It makes some very, very valid points. People who served in the police have recognised this for many, many years. Essentially, it's a real piece of criticism of the strategic level leaders. That's the chief constables, deputies and assistants up and down the country, because it not only criticises them in terms of going too far with wokery, if we want to call it that. It talks about abuse of their positions, talks about nepotism, it talks about sexual exploitation or abuse of their position as well. And the big issue is about nepotism. If you've been in the police, as I have, and I was in fact a chief superintendent and temporary commander of West London, and was on the same strategic command course as Sir Mark Rowley, so I've been amongst them at that level, so I know what so many of them are like. And the issue on it is, most of them care about one thing, which is their personal advancement, and therefore they will bend the knee, metaphorically, to whatever pressure group is around them, or whatever political push on it is there, whether it's police and crime commissioners, which I've also been one of those as well, or it is to the politically appointed Majesty's Inspectors of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Service.
So is it,
one of the big points it makes...
Within that, Kevin, sorry to interrupt you, within that, is it just too political already with a small p? Even if it's not thinking about the politics of the day, it's people jostling for positions. You've got a hierarchical organisation, and your sort of political approach in terms of how you deal with it is something that a lot of police officers feel will get them advancement, and that's why they buy into this woke nonsense.
Well, it's not a lot of police officers, because most police officers remain as constables, sergeants and inspectors. There is a small group who, if they move fast and become chief superintendents, that's when the battle to get into the chief officer ranks goes on. And one of the problems that you have is, because it's 43 police forces in England and Wales, okay, Scotland 44, British Transport Police, actually there are relatively small numbers at the top of the tree. So you end up quite often with nepotism and favouritism being shown. Now, one of the big issues, and one of the points that's raised in that report, is it says there should be some kind of leadership college, which is big for Nick Herbert to say that, who was one of four spads working for Theresa May, who like to call themselves the four horsemen of the apocalypse, when they set about their police reform plans. Which
I think you might be mixing up Nick Herbert and Nick Timothy. Nick Herbert is a former policing minister.
Yeah, but he was also before that, if I'm not mistaken. But I might be mixing him. But there were four of them. And I think he may have been one, but I might be mixing them up.
I don't think Nick Herbert was ever a special advisor to Theresa May, but I know what you mean, certainly when it comes to Theresa May, and she certainly cut the police, and that's a criticism that has often followed her.
But one of the things that they did is they completely threw out the window a Royal Commission finding on police that came after the Second World War, which said there must be much better senior leadership training. And as a result of that, the Bramshill Police Staff College was set up, which became a global brand name all over the world, with senior police officers wanting to come there from all over the place, from Hong Kong to Zimbabwe to Malawi to anywhere they wanted to come. What was part of the system there is all chief inspectors would go there for a 6-month leadership course, all superintendents would do a 4-month leadership course, and all chief superintendents who were advancing further would do a 6-month strategic command course. Theresa May scrapped and sold the college off in what many people believe was an act of spite against Sir Hugh Orde, who at the time was the president of the Association of Chief Police Officers, and it was all during the time when Theresa May was, if you like, cajoling and in some ways laughing at the police by saying, "Stop crying wolf." And I was there at a big conference where she actually said that.
Okay.
But what she did, she closed, the Tories, they closed the Strategic Leadership College for the police.
Okay, well, I mean, that's all fact, of course. I'm not disputing that, but Theresa May, of course, hasn't been Home Secretary for over a decade. It is interesting as well that not a single police force in England and Wales has been judged by inspectors to be outstanding for leadership. You talked about the 43 police forces in England. 47 investigations have happened into alleged misconduct by chief officers since 2018, including cronyism, nepotism, abuse of power for sexual purposes and corruption. And the thing that, well, two things really leapt off the page to me, Kevin, and I wonder what you think about this. 8 chief constables or former chief constables under investigation or awaiting disciplinary procedures, 8 of them. And when they surveyed the constables and sergeants and said, are you part of a well-led and managed organisation? 13% of constables, 17% of sergeants agreed they worked in a well-led and managed organisation. That is not police perception. That is not people sitting at home not knowing about the police. That is the people who are actually there doing the job. 13% of the constables and 70% of the sergeants. So you've got 87% of constables do not believe that they work in a well-led and managed organisation. That's shocking.
It's appalling. It is absolutely appalling. I come from a family of 9 police officers. My own son, with 16 years in the police, a detective sergeant on the elite anti-terrorist squad a couple of years ago, said, "I've had enough of this, I'm off to the private sector." They are leaving in droves. The morale is in a shocking state. And it all comes down to a lack of what I would call quality leadership, guidance, values and standards coming down from the top. And so many of these debacles that we see going on the street in one way or another, they all come from poor leadership, poor values and standards. And although you're right, it was 10 years ago, it takes, when Theresa May stopped being Home Secretary, it takes a long time from that developmental process I talked about to become a chief officer. And if there is no proper training about leadership, values and standards, you know, how to plan your strategies, which there isn't. The current strategic command course for chief constables, I think, is 6 weeks. To reach that kind of level in the regular army, you'll have done 3 years of full-time training. You know, I mean, it is dreadful. And what it's all about, actually, is because the police budget has been cut and cut and cut and cut. The only thing that matters in anyone's eyes is the Bobby on the beat, the police numbers. This is a complete error in terms of what works for policing. What works for policing is a well-led, well-organised organisation.
And you're absolutely right, Kevin. And efficiency within that. Thank you very much, Kevin Hurley there, former Metropolitan Police Superintendent, joining us this evening on the Evening Exchange. Thanks, Kevin. Much appreciated. Graham's been in touch from Bushy and he says the skin of the higher echelon of Reform UK is getting thinner and thinner. Joanna in Salisbury says, "Hi, Cardi P." Hi, Joanna. Says, "This Nigel Farage financial information has mostly been about for 2 years. It should have been properly investigated immediately if there was anything to see. It's now looking petty. Burnham, Starmer, Mandelson, Lord Ali, that debacle has not been sufficiently answered. They just waited until it blew over." Another person says, my daughter is a consultant anaesthetist and would like to be earning £150,000 a year just to be a consultant. She did 6 years at university, 2 years foundation training, and then 7 years speciality training. Emma's been in touch to say, can the relatives of people who suffer or worse die because some high-paid consultant decides to strike and delay their care go on to sue the union who organised the strikes? Why should the public, who at the end of the day pay these wages, be forced to be used as a bargaining tool, putting their health at risk, says Emma. Lots of people want to get in touch, and we will take calls, as promised, in just a minute, 0344 499 1000. First of all, of course, England won 3-2 yesterday. We're talking about the red card controversy and Donald Trump a little bit later on in the programme. We're also looking ahead to Saturday, of course, and England versus Norway in Miami. There's no escaping the 2026 World Cup, so we're marking a massive month of football in style here at Talk. How would you feel about pocketing an amazing £26,000 in 2026, completely tax-free? You can sort your mortgage, take a luxury holiday, or treat a loved one to something super special. It's a life-changing sum. We're giving it away, and this is how you can get your hands on it.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 8338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 8338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks, everybody, for your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes. Really appreciate it. And Elaine says, I think promotion in the police relies on if you've ticked all the diversity boxes and worship DEI, not so much if your face fits, like Lord Blunkett said. Chris and Emma have sent a lovely message. We love your show, says Chris. We're currently on our holidays in our motorhome in the Outer Hebrides. I hope you've paid all the payments on that and you haven't used independence campaign money for it, Chris. I'm sure it's totally above board. you and Emma, in your motorhome. You haven't bought it off Nicola Sturgeon. It's pouring with rain and blowing a gale. But we have cabin fever. It's my husband's birthday. You're brightening up our evening. Well, thank you, Chris. I presume Chris is the husband. A very happy birthday to you. Really appreciate that. And lots of people getting in touch about Nigel Farage, including Herbie in Harrow, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Herbie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yes, good evening, Peter. Well, Posh George, I'm sure, goes back to UKIP days, if I remember rightly. I'm sure I remember seeing him and being there myself.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I know he's a long-standing and trusted friend of Nigel Farage.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he was. And the thing is, though, Peter, is that he's been a friend for a long time, and all of a sudden he's done a bad thing, you know, during his friendship. It's not Nigel's fault, is it, that he's unfortunately done
It's
something
Nigel
bad?
Farage's. It may not be. It's certainly not Nigel Farage's responsibility what George Cardwell has done or not done. But if you're going to take money from him, you're going to take advice, and you're going to take payments for security, or you're going to stay at his home and have that at your disposal. Well, that's a judgment, is it not, Herbie?
Well, the thing is, though, Peter, no matter what he does, you know, he's damned if he does, he's damned if he don't. You know, they're out after him, you know, come what may, we know this.
But should he have done those things, do you think? I mean, do you think those were...
We don't know the true facts yet, do we, Peter? This is the problem.
He's not denying it, Herbie. He's not saying he didn't have George Cotterell's home at his disposal. He's not saying he didn't take money from him. He's not saying that he hasn't been an advisor in his inner circle. He hasn't said those things, so he hasn't denied those. He said he may take legal action, but he hasn't denied those things. So I think we can reasonably assume that they are correct.
Yeah, but he's been a personal friend for a long time, and if the personal friend decides to help you, give you support or whatever, is that wrong? I don't think so, Peter.
I don't know if it's necessarily wrong, but it should be declared, should it not? We should know about it.
Well, has he got to declare everything if it doesn't really, if it's not at the time of when...
Well, the rules would suggest, Herbie, the rules in politics are if you get material benefit from something over £300 within a year of you becoming Prime Minister, or becoming MP, prior to that, you've got to declare it. That was the problem with the 5 million. That's the problem here.
Do we have the dates of when this was given? Though?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, no, it's all. You can read all about it, Herbie, in all the papers. I mean, we do know the dates, and the fact is that George Cotterell is a convicted fraudster. He was convicted in the United States, and yet Nigel Farage has decided to take money off him and to take hospitality and to take donations from him. Now that's up to Nigel Farage. That's his decision to do that. But should he not answer questions about it? Should we not know about it? Should it not be transparent if this guy wants to be the next Prime Minister?
Well, let's give him time, and let's hope that he does come onto your programme and perhaps lay out the facts, the bare facts, and then hope, let's hope that he does that. If he does that, then good luck to him. Hope he does. It will make everybody happy then.
Okay.
Keep him quiet, won't it?
Yeah, thanks, Herbie. Much appreciated. Great call there. Thank you. Ian's in Bridgend and has some thoughts about the Farage money as well. Ian, you're very welcome to the programme.
Hello, Peter. Can I just say first, commiserations to England for losing to South Africa on Saturday, and well done the Welsh boys for beating Fiji.
Okay, that was in the rugby, presumably?
That's right, that's in the Nations Cup.
Okay.
Yeah, with regard to the Farage issue, yeah, I'm looking forward to the mugshot T-shirt of Farage. Was it?
Now, hold on, Ian. There's no suggestion that Nigel Farage has done anything criminal.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if we knew there'd be dirt on Nigel. So, I'm a Reform supporter. I'll have a partisan opinion. But it's just interesting how it seems to have come so early before Burnham has even taken over. And I just wonder, are they getting the dirt out now with a view to getting...
I don't think Reform UK are behind this. It's the Sunday Times and Insight team, their investigative team, have put all this together and are making all these... I've reported this and they're making all these allegations, Ian.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's... We were anticipating an establishment stitch-up, weren't we? But I think it's going to, obviously, it'll work in Farage's favour, I think, in the long term. But I just wonder whether, are we looking now at an early election? This is the worst that they've got, so they're getting it out now as a preparation.
Well, they're certainly Reform UK is certainly putting a manifesto together. Nigel Farage has asked his team to do that, to put the manifesto together. I mean, do you think there'll be an early election?
Well, I just wonder, we see Restore seem to be... falling apart at the moment, don't they? With Rupert Lowe seems to be turning on his ethno-that proportion of his supporters. It all seems to be going in a very interesting direction at the moment.
Politics is not boring at the moment. There's absolutely no doubt about that. What about you in Wales, Ian, where things are there? Have you noticed really any difference since the new administration there?
Well, not really at the moment, although there was a vote recently, I think, where Labour voted with Reform to keep the Plaid budget out. So that, that's an interesting development there, because Reform is the opposition here in Wales. So it's interesting to see how these things are fleshing out there with regard to sort of local policy. But again, I think the point's being made, as with the SNP up in London, and all this devolution of powers to the councils. I think Andy Burnham said. Well, of course, that's going to put the Senate's nose out of joint, isn't it? So there's going to be a lot of machinations there as well.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens, Ian. Thank you for your call. Appreciate that. And that, just to give you some of the detail of what the Sunday Times has reported, maybe you missed the paper yesterday, it reports that in 2023, George Cardwell, this guy Posh George, put Farage in contact with Jack Anderton, who was a 25-year-old political activist from Liverpool, to help run Farage's social media operation, particularly on TikTok. Farage's engagement surged. I think he is the most popular politician, certainly in the UK, on TikTok, old Nigel Farage. It reports that Cottrell paid Anderton a salary of equivalent of around £55,000 a year. Later that year, Cottrell helped negotiate a £1.5 million fee for Nigel Farage to appear on I'm a Celebrity, and started providing Farage with security, primarily composed of elite former soldiers and drivers. And after Nigel Farage announced that he would stand as Reform UK candidate in the 2024 general election and became party leader, he started travelling the country, often with George Cottrell by his side. One of the occasions when was the campaign launch in Clacton in Essex, where the milkshake was thrown over Nigel Farage, and we remember that, and someone was, of course, convicted over that, although not sent to prison, if I remember correctly. And Cottrell began renting a residential property near Buckingham Palace, for which he is understood to be paying tens of thousands of pounds per month, where Farage has been allowed to stay. Nigel Farage was, of course, elected MP for Clacton on the 4th of July 2024, so almost exactly 2 years ago. He then registered a £9,253 trip to Belgium in April 24, donated by Cottrell, and later added a £15,276 donation from George Cottrell for a US domestic flight he provided in December 2024. No other support from Cottrell is listed in the register of members' financial interests. So it's a question of what should have been declared and when. Greg is in London and has some thoughts on this. Greg, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yes, good evening, Peter, and a very good programme as usual.
Thank you, Greg.
I'm very interested about the connection between convicted fraudsters and major political figures. Am I not right in saying that Louise Haigh is a convicted fraudster?
You are.
And is she not, by all accounts, closely allied to Andy Burnham?
Yes, she is, and she may well get a senior cabinet position under Andy Burnham. Yeah.
Exactly. So I really look forward to Mr. Burnham's explanation for this relationship.
Well, she lost her job in the cabinet because that was not declared. That conviction was not declared. She was nicking mobile phones, and she did not declare that to Keir Starmer.
It wasn't just nicking mobile phones. It was inventing a street mugging.
Yeah, well, that was part of it as well, if I remember the correct details. So you're absolutely right, Greg.
In my book, I've got no brief for Nigel Farage or Reform or his relationship with Posh George, whatever his bloody name is. But I'm sorry, some people in glass houses should not throw stones.
Although it's not Labour throwing stones at Nigel Farage on this, particularly, although they have criticised him for it.
Don't worry, they are, and they soon will be.
Yeah. Well, we'll cover all those stories. If Louise Haigh comes back, let me tell you that we will be covering that as well. She told police in 2013 she lost her phone during a mugging on a night out, and later found out that the phone hadn't been taken, so she lied to police and indeed was convicted over that. Greg, thank you for that reminder, and certainly you're absolutely right that Louise Haigh is very close to Andy Burnham, and I think could receive a very senior role in his cabinet, maybe something like Chief Secretary of the Prime Minister, the sort of Darren Jones role as well. And lots of people getting in touch about, all sorts of things. Arthur Ferry, apparently through the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. Someone has got in touch to say, I thought all the Brits were out, but I must have got that incorrect. And thank you to Nat in Tel Aviv, who says, you sound much better, Peter. Are you over your cold now? I've had mine for 2 weeks now and I feel about 80. My cold is not quite over yet. I reserve the right to moan about it for a little bit longer, but we're nearly there. In just a second, we'll talk about important things such as pro-Palestinian Palestinian parents launching a campaign against a school anti-Semitism review. Jewish people have been called sneaky by maternity nurses, and revellers at London Pride, the Gay Pride March, told to go back to your Zionist homeland. And what did the police do? Absolutely nothing. We'll talk about that in just a second. We'll also speak very soon to the father and son who were contacted by the police to say that the son was kicking a ball and it may be causing criminal damage, except it didn't. It didn't cause criminal damage at all. There's just the risk that it might, and the police came around and gave a big talking to the family to say there was a risk of crime. Why don't they solve real crimes like, I don't know, racial abuse against people told to go back to their Zionist homeland? Stay with us here on Talk and get your call in on all of these topics. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch. And Dawn says, I used to train potential managers when I worked for a district council. One classic mistake is to assume that a brilliant planner, for example, would be a good manager and leader. There are problems in the public sector, many of them, says Dawn. Well, Dawn, I totally agree with you. And one of the things now, I will say that the place I work in now is very well managed. I'm very happy with the management, and both the manager and his number two are very, very good indeed. But when it comes to other times, I mean, it's rare to get good broadcast management. It must be said there's been some shocking management in my career, let me tell you. And often, you know, journalists, they want to uncover things, they want to upset the apple cart, they don't want to be emollient people who solve problems, they want to kind of create problems, and often that is the way. I think I've had maybe 3 good managers in my entire journalistic career. One of them is my manager at the moment, who is the Ayatollah of audio, Danny Morris himself. Anyway, let's talk about this dreadful incident at Pride in London on Saturday. I wasn't taking part in Pride in London on Saturday, but I was in central London. I was meeting a friend for lunch, actually, and I saw the very colourful and very intense kind of celebration that people were having of their sexuality, but Jewish revellers were abused at London Pride, told to go back to your Zionist homeland. I think we can see a little bit of this on the screen at the moment. There are people shouting at F you, Jew. What you need to do is go back to your Zionist homeland. There are 2 police officers, because it won't last much longer. How many babies did they kill? Says this woman who is shouting at these gay people here, somewhere in, by the look of things, Soho. And yeah, that is a really horrific thing that has happened. There are quite a number of stories that I want to speak to Nicole Lampert about. Nicole, Pride is meant to be about tolerance. It's meant to be about the ideas you might not necessarily agree with, or sexuality or way of life or whatever you want to call it, you may not necessarily agree with, and people getting on with it and having a nice time. Instead, it was the site of at least some dreadful, horrendous, anti-Semitic, racist abuse.
Yeah, to me, this just sums up where we are in this country, and it's sad to say, but it's everywhere. It's in the schools, it's in the universities. I had a family weekend, and my nephew was talking to me about he was in a Jewish football team, and another team started shouting "Free Palestine" at them. And it's basically, although you might want to free Palestine, whatever that might mean, if you start shouting at a Jewish person, then you're therefore it takes it on a level. It's a form of abuse, even if it isn't obviously abusive. But of course, this stuff was go back to your Zionist homeland and F the Jews. That takes things on a whole level further. And as you say, Pride is meant to be about being proud of who you are. It's meant to be about accepting people of all ethnicities. There was a group of Jews there, and they were separate from the others, partly because previously they've been told that they couldn't be kept safe, which is why they were together. But they had their pride, they had their badges, they had their flags, and they were trying to be proud Jews. And there are lots of gay Jews that I know that try and take inspiration from gay pride and make Jews proud of themselves too, because for too long we've been told to hide ourselves. But what we saw at the Pride demonstration or the Pride march was that's why people are frightened.
Yeah, and I mean, Dr. Sarah Mullally, who is the Archbishop of Canterbury, wanting, or at least attempting, she says, to show some moral leadership on this, and she was at the Nova exhibition a couple of days ago. I was at the Nova exhibition actually on Saturday, finally got there. Very moving, very, very good exhibition, although I must say, being at the site with you on the trip we took together, Nicole, as part of a wider group in September was even more moving, I must say, but very, very good exhibition. She has gone to that. The Mayor of London has been drag kicking and screaming to that as well. Yet we have, in a cathedral, you've tweeted about this, in a cathedral we have a map of Israel with the Palestinian flags on it as a piece of artwork. What's going on here?
So again, what we saw at the Pride demonstration was kind of go back to your Zionist homeland and also, destroy it. It's kind of, we don't want you here, F you Jews, but we don't want you there either.
Yes.
And the artwork in the cathedral was of the whole of Israel with a Palestine flag all over it. So basically that's calling for the ethnic cleansing of Jews. And it does feel a bit like, has the church learned nothing? It really hasn't. I know people that phoned and complained to the cathedral today, and they were given short shrift basically. They were told it was part of an exhibition of artwork which had come from the local Muslim community. But if any other community was calling for the destruction of a different community, then you wouldn't have it in pride of place in a British cathedral. I really don't think you would. And that's, it's depressing that it's everywhere, from Pride to the Archbishop of Canterbury.
To schools as well, and pro-Palestinian parents launching a campaign against the school anti-Semitism review. They don't want there to be measures taken against anti-Semitism. They're talking about a hierarchy of racism.
Yeah, and one of the depressing things about this Parents Against Palestine is working hand in hand with the NEU, which is the teachers' union. So that's 500,000 teachers in this country.
Who are meant to be, who are contractually meant to be impartial. I was talking to a parent only the other day, a parent of a child who's at a school in East London, and there were Jewish people in that school who went to the head teacher and said, we're worried about our children, I mean primary school age children, being, can we guarantee their safety here? The school principal said, I don't want to get involved, and then the people took their children out of that school and put them to another school. And that's just one example of the low-level stuff. It's important stuff, but low-level stuff, that's one or two students, and that is happening in so many different places, Nicole, as you know.
It's happening in schools and universities, and you've got teachers that are wearing Palestine flags. So you've got it coming from the teachers, where they are incorporating teaching material that looks like the genuine stuff, but pushing this genocide lie. And then you've got it in universities. And then you've got it in hospitals. I spoke to someone today who was in a hospital, and she said there are loads of staff with Palestine lanyards, even though the Man Review said they weren't meant to. In some ways, it's made them worse. And with the schools review that's been launched off the back of, I mean, I've spoken to a number of parents who've taken their children out of schools because they've been bullied for being Jewish. The Jewish schools are absolutely full to the brim. They can't take any more.
And tell us about this maternity report. You mentioned the NHS there, and this specifically on the maternity report revealing what an NHS staffer told a parent. Jewish people are sneaky. I mean, it's just straightforward racism, straightforward anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and I really feel that, you know, I think anyone from any minority, or you know, or even you being Northern Irish, you know that people might harbour thoughts about you, stereotypes. But it felt like for quite a long time, a lid was kept on this, and it is kept on it for other minorities still. But somehow it's open season for Jews. So even the wokest people, like we saw at the Pride demo, you know, they can probably consider themselves good anti-racists. They don't see anything wrong with saying F Jews, because it's so out in the ether, it's so open now and so acceptable, and that is the biggest problem of all, that particularly amongst the young people, how acceptable it is.
Nicole, always good to talk to you, even if it's about these very difficult topics. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. That is Nicole Lambert there, journalist, broadcaster and indefatigable campaigner against anti-Semitism. I was at the Nova exhibition on Saturday. We're hopefully going to talk about it later in the week and maybe even get a survivor of that festival on the 7th of October, where hundreds of people were murdered, maimed, raped, kidnapped by Hamas terrorists. A very, very good exhibition that is on in London at the moment. It's going to lots of other cities around the UK in the next weeks and months. And if you can get to it, please do. It's not just for people who know everything about the Middle East or Jewish people or whatever. It's for absolutely everybody to realise what went on and how it can be prevented, and why we need to know the facts about the Middle East, which I try to bring you on this programme. We're going to talk in just a second about a story that was brought to us by a caller last week. You may remember we're talking about the guy who went to the pub, and the police came along, 2 police officers came along and said, oh, you've sent a tweet about the alleged actions of a local Green councillor, saying that he didn't want furniture from a pub, and 2 policemen talked to that man. Kevin interviewed him last week. We spoke to the Free Speech Union about it as well. And that prompted a call from Arif, who is from I think he's from Hertfordshire, actually, and Arif and his son George are going to be with us in a second. The police were called for a football kicked over a fence. They then came to Arif's house, spoke to his family and said, oh, you might cause criminal damage. Yes, but they didn't. Honestly, have the police nothing better to do? Meanwhile, there's so many crimes that go unsolved. Meanwhile, you've got 87% of constables who don't think that their particular policing organisations, the police force, are well run. Absolutely astonishing. And actually, on that leadership course, which happened at Brahms Hill, that we were talking about a little bit earlier on, one former police officer has been in touch, say, I attended Brahms Hill many times. It was a superb place. If only the College of Policing had been closed instead of Brahms Hill. Also a huge shame that Hendon Policing training school stopped residential 20-week courses. It was invaluable for new recruits and for follow-up training. Theresa May was an absolute disaster for policing, and we are suffering the consequences. On anti-Semitism as well, what is Bridget Phillipson actually doing? It's an absolute disgrace. That's why we need Suella Braverman sorting out the education system. Lots to talk about with Arif and his son George, who I think may have been up to the wee hours watching the football match. He's a big fan of football. And come on, 14-year-old boy kicking a football in his back garden. That's what this country is meant to be about. But the police want to put a stop to it because you might cause criminal damage. Stay with us here on Talk and have your say too. 0344 499 1000.
the thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer, talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I want to talk now, we've been talking earlier on in the programme about policing and the fact that policing is absolutely in crisis. You've got 87% of constables in this country who do not believe that their police force is managed and well run. Well, two constables came out to Arif Gardner's house, and George Gardner's house. Arif gave me a ring on Friday, and I definitely wanted to talk to him again. Arif, it's great to see you now. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yes, you?
George is his son. George, I think, are you 14, is that right?
Well, I was 14 last year, but 15 this year.
15 this year, OK. And you've got your England top on. Are you knackered? Were you up this morning?
Yes.
During the night? Did you go to school today?
Yes.
Well, you're very good to watch the football, then go to school, and then stay up for this as well. You must want your bed. But I'm very interested in hearing more about what happened, and Arif picked up the phone to give us a ring. And, I mean, we're talking about police resources and what the police do. Arif, just for people who maybe weren't watching or listening on Friday night, can you just remind me what happened last year when George was doing what every 14-year-old boy should be doing, which is kicking a football in the back garden?
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes a ball goes over a fence. It doesn't go over the immediate neighbour's garden. Sometimes it goes over to a little quiet road with some flats at the end. It might bounce on the concrete and it might roll down towards the cars. No damage has ever occurred, but sometimes it happens. It's not very regular. But there is a lady in the flats that constantly shouts abuse at George. She films him on her phone and tells him that he shouldn't do that, otherwise it's going to damage her car. So we suspect that she was probably the one that called the police. And then a few days later, when I wasn't there, two officers had the time to come round and speak to George. Sorry, not George, his brother, Lewis, and his sister, Emily. So myself and George weren't there. But so in effect, they're speaking to two, one adult, 19, and one child, about the fact that George shouldn't be doing that. They should possibly move the goal post in our garden. And I was really annoyed that they'd come round, to be honest, and spoken to my kids without informing me first. And I also felt that it was a real waste of time because there are real crimes that happen.
Yeah.
Burglaries that happen and real things that need sorting out. Yet they've got the time for two officers to come around and speak about a ball going over a fence. It was utterly ridiculous. So I did raise a complaint with the Herts Police. And they investigated, they looked at the body cam and things like that. And they got back to me with no real reason other than they were trying to prevent a crime. So I said, well, what would the crime be? And they said it would be criminal damage. So I said, well, it wouldn't be.
We contacted Hertfordshire Constabulary earlier today. We spoke to them on the phone, one of the team members here, for about 4 hours ago, gave them all the information, the names, the reference numbers. They haven't responded to us. But just to give them a little bit of a say, I would happily read out a statement from them, but they haven't provided one. In regard to your complaint, which you very kindly sent us, they've written, in regard to your comment that officers are wasting time and resources, The inspector involved has commented that he is in complete agreement with you that police time is best spent dealing with burglaries and criminality. Unfortunately, many years of experience on a local policing team tells him that if efforts to resolve issues are not made at the start of disputes between neighbours, then the situation can often escalate and end up causing more significant involvement by police and demand on their limited resources. The inspector viewed the PC's camera footage, and he is content this was a genuine effort during a brief visit to point out the likelihood of the football damaging a neighbour's car for your family to give some thought about how they could try to stop this occurring. The officer was polite, jovial, and pointed out this was a low-level matter which just needed some consideration about the direction of play and courtesy to others. I mean, 14-year-olds football goes down the street to a neighbour who's not particularly happy about it. What do you make of their response? I mean, they say that when you make a complaint to the complaint resolution team, they want customer service excellence. Do you feel you received customer service excellence?
Well, I guess the complaint itself was answered, so I can't fault that. But the crux of the matter was that they didn't really answer why they or how they had the resources to send 2 officers for a crime that hadn't been committed.
Yes.
That was my issue. And also, my other children pointed out that she had been filming, the woman that called the police in the first place, had been filming George playing football in the garden. So that's a crime in itself. But they did nothing about that.
Well, he would have a reasonable expectation of privacy. George, tell me, when did you hear about this? Tell me what your older brother and sister told you about it. Was it when you got home that day? And what did you think?
Well, I just thought it was quite ridiculous how the police just came round, because obviously I'm decent at football, but I don't mean to kick over the fence.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it was maybe heavy-handed, or do you think the police maybe had a point? What do you think about that?
I mean, the woman in the flat, she might have just got quite upset about me playing football, as I didn't mean to kick over the fence. So she tried to get a point out of that and just tried to get me in trouble.
I'm quite interested in people's views on the police. We have a big survey today, Arif, about and a big report from the former Home Secretary, Lord Blunkett, about the police. And 87% of constables think that their particular police force is not well run. I mean, do you have support for the police? Do you have faith in the police to do their job correctly when they seem to spend a lot of time, effort and money on, a really low-level thing that should just be, in my view, not a matter for them?
I agree. I probably used to look up to the police when I was younger, but now I see too many things and have experience of too many things which are petty. They don't solve real crimes. They don't, they're not in the right place at the right time, and they're always picking on things that seem to be the easiest job to do. A social media tweet is easy to go and visit someone. This ridiculous scenario with the football. They're not crimes. They're just things that they can easily resolve or try to resolve rather than proper investigating. So I've lost a bit of faith in them, yes.
George, I want to ask you 2 more questions before I let you and your dad go and let you go to bed, because I'm sure you're knackered. But one thing, I'm really interested to know your opinion on something else, which is related to this a wee bit. But when you hear about the social media ban for 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, because that's something coming up as well. We don't often have 14-year-olds on this programme, and I just wondered what your thought was on that.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it should be available for all ages, because people could be lost. You could lose your parents. It's ridiculous.
And is it something your friends are all talking about as well?
Yeah,
okay.
Most of them, yeah.
Okay, and the most important question I want to ask you is what's going to happen on Saturday night in Miami?
Ooh. 4-0.
4-0, okay.
4-0.
And who are going to be the goal scorers?
Kane 2, Pickford 2.
You're not worried about Haaland for Norway?
No.
It'll be fine, they'll get past it. Well, listen, you keep playing, enjoy yourself, enjoy your summer. Really appreciate you spending the time near. And Arif, thanks for picking up the phone as well on Friday. It's very good to talk to you both. And I am on your side on this one. So thank you both very, very much. And enjoy the World Cup as well, both of you. That's Arif and George Gardner there. Police being called for a football kicked over offence. 2 police officers came and spoke to his siblings. I mean, unbelievable. Really crazy stuff. Lots to discuss on all of that. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Will is in Sussex and has some thoughts on Farage. Will, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, Peter.
Hi there.
Yeah, my thoughts on this Farage thing. I mean, look, this is stuff that goes back a long way. It seems very convenient that it's brought up now. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist because I don't really want to be one, but I feel like I am becoming one. But I honestly beginning to believe that the media, which lets the left-leaning media, who don't really like Nigel Farage, let's face it, and all the things that he's managed to produce particularly in the last 10 years, I think they're trying to orchestrate a bit of a Burnham bounce here. You know, we're going to get a new leader of the Labour Party. Okay, I think he might have maybe edged a little bit for increase. The Labour polls are like maybe 1%. But what can we do to actually, can we orchestrate something here in the next 5 or 6 weeks, which would open up a gap in the polls, just in case perhaps if Burnham does have the guts to perhaps call that general election. The media.
Let me just put something to you, Will. Okay, so the same reporter who's in charge of this unit of the Sunday Times, and to be totally honest and straightforward, the Sunday Times is owned by the same company that owns Talk. We're all independent of one another, but I just want to tell you that he's written on his Twitter. His name's Gabriel Poker, and he's been on this show. I know him. He was the one who broke the suits and spectacles to Keir Starmer story. He broke the story about Starmer's Director of Communications being in association with a convicted paedophile. He broke the story about Tulip Sadiq and the housing deals and his evidence formed part of the inquiry that led to his resignation. He broke the story on Morgan McSweeney. His group spent £750,000 unlawfully undeclared donations, and they exposed that as well. Is this guy really out to get Farage, do you think?
Yeah.
Even though he's done all that stuff to Labour?
I mean, look, you know, there's a direction of travel here. It's kind of like he might not be too keen on those things, but the ultimate aim is, do you want a reform party leading this country? You know, I honestly believe...
Shouldn't we hold any political leader up to a large degree of scrutiny, Will?
Well, you can, but I mean, you know what? The way the media, particularly the mainstream, like the BBC, went, say, for Boris Johnson for eating a cake, and yet...
But he wasn't just eating a cake, he was breaking the rules that he had himself put forward.
Okay, example on that scenario, right? So, Keir Starmer, when he had his curry up in Durham...
Mm-hmm. Well, do you know what? Will, stay where we are. We're going to go to the news now. I promise you I'll bring you back after the news, OK? We're going to go to the news, Will, right now, because we have to hit the time. Stay on the line. We'll continue the conversation in just a second. I promise you, Will. I'm not trying to cut you off. We just have to go to the news. I'll go to Will after the break. Stay with us here on Talk, and we'll hear more from Will in just a second.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
As promised, we'll go straight back to Will in Sussex. Will, sorry to cut you off, just had to go to the news there. If I don't do it, I get shouted at. Please continue your points.
I think when I left you, we were talking about, say, with the example of the cake scenario with Boris Johnson. With Starmer, it was the curry night. I remember on PMQs, Starmer going, you should resign. Just the fact that you're having to be investigated by the police, you must resign. But he was under investigation. He wouldn't.
He didn't resign. Yeah.
He did not apply the same standards he was applying.
And it's the double standards as well, Will, about an election.
But he did actually come out and said. He did actually come out and hold a press conference, and he said, "Well, look, if I do get found guilty of transgressing the COVID rules of the diary, I will resign." But probably that was after he'd picked up the phone to the Labour elected police and crime commissioner for Durham and said, "Look, can you do something?"
Well, just to keep us both on the right side of the law, Will, there's no suggestion that police and crime commissioner did anything illegal. But listen, I know what you mean. The thing that really annoys me as well is when politicians like Andy Burnham and others say, when an MP defects to another party, there should be a by-election, or alternatively, when there's a new prime minister, there should be a general election. We see hypocrisy on all sides on that, including from Andy Burnham.
As for Andy Burnham, Andy Burnham, if I close my eyes and listen to him, I just think of Neil Morrissey. He just reminds me of Neil Morrissey or Tony from Men Behaving Badly.
Right.
Quite likeable, a bit amusing, but basically stupid and a bit sick.
Okay.
Really.
Well, there we are.
Deborah.
That was a while ago, when behaving badly. Well, I'll have to move on because of a guest waiting. Have you a final point to make, maybe?
Badly.
Yeah, well, indeed. Have you a final point to make, Will, or have you finished? Are you okay?
Well, I just think they're trying to orchestrate something, the mainstream media. One last point is I would always like to know that in the year of the run-up to the general election, Labour were always on about late 40s, 48% in leading the opinion polls. But come the election day, where did that go? It was 33%. They lost 15%. Was it because was it because YouGov, which I know, is it like, if someone said, I don't know who I'll vote for, did they put that down as, I'll put that down as Labour then?
Well, they often don't do that, and it is.
No,
but I know what you mean.
Sometimes if you sow the seed into the electorate that the Conservatives will lose, then they it's kind of like, well, I want to back. It's a bit like, Rupert Murdoch always likes to back the winner. People like to back. I
think we all like to back the winner. Will, listen, thanks for your thoughts there. Really appreciate your call, and thanks for staying on the line there as well. You have a good evening.
Yeah, cheers, Peter. Thanks.
Cheers, Will. Thank you. Just a couple on Arif before we go to our next guest as well. This is the dad whose son, we saw the son proudly wearing his England top there, who's called George, St George. I understand, Arif, says David. However, do we not have playing fields anymore? Having lived in Spain for many years, children will play football on the beach in areas designated for football with mesh fences or playing fields for football. I think balls going into the neighbour's garden could be considered antisocial these days, says David in the Cotswolds. Come on, David. It's a 14-year-old playing football in his back garden. I will defend that. Wolfie P, a rival to Cardi P if ever there was one, says, I can't stand the police, they're not of this planet. Rachel says, I was just listening to Arif and George there. If the police were doing a good job fighting crime, I'd not be so angry hearing this. But also speaking to children instead of their father is so draconian and unacceptable. In fairness to Hertfordshire Police, there was an adult there, a 19-year-old, but still. Long message from Melanie here. He says, after commencing teacher training 35 years ago and being a qualified school teacher since 1996, I will tell you again, as I have done several times before, but you do not seem to listen. Listen to people like me, who's over a decade older than you and who has been in a profession preferring to patronise me and be randomly rude, so I do not bother telephoning you anymore. says Melanie. I will reiterate yet again, it is not a contractual agreement for a teacher to be impartial. It is basic common sense and usual professionalism. Please do your research, Peter, instead of randomly undermining our profession. Thank you. If I had taught a child who had illness as a result of circumcision, which happens more often than people realise, I would not hesitate to tell the parent exactly what I think of their barbaric practice, which lets people believe that circumcision prevents HIV and all sorts of diseases, illnesses, which is untrue. Contact social services. I would not care less what you, Peter, think, says Melanie. Well, Melanie, I remember the conversation to which you agree, and I mean, I am happy to treat people who are either 10 years younger than me, 10 years older than me, or many years older or younger than me with the same, hopefully, courtesy. If you don't feel I was courteous in that conversation, I apologise. I hope you'll give me another ring, because you're a very good caller and I'd love to hear from you again. We'll hear from more callers in a few minutes' time, but I want to talk about the politics of the day with David Wooding. He's the former editor of the Sunday Express, who has been waiting very, very patiently. Just before we get to him, we'll ask him to wait just a few seconds longer when we hear what Robert Jenrick, the Treasury spokesman of Reform UK, has been saying about George Cardwell, the very close aide of Nigel Farage. This is what Robert Jenrick said yesterday.
He's an old friend of Nigel's, and he's supported him in the past before Nigel was even a member of Parliament. He has no formal role within Reform whatsoever.
Is he paying for Mr Nigel Farage's security?
Well, I believe it says in the story that he isn't, but he supported Nigel before he became a member of Parliament. So there's nothing to see here.
Robert Jenrick there. Well, David Wooding has been waiting very patiently. Thank you for doing so, David, as former editor of the Sunday Express. What do you make of this Posh George controversy?
Well, it's very difficult for Reform, isn't it? You feel that the party and indeed Nigel Farage himself are a little diminished in the last few weeks. First of all, they lose Makerfield, an area where 66% voted for Brexit, and they won 8 seats in the local council elections previously, and everybody, and in the polls they were way ahead. So okay, yeah, Andy Burnham comes along as a local lad, made good. The fame factor probably had a lot to do with that, but nevertheless a setback for them. And on top of this, we've now got Nigel Farage coming under a lot of scrutiny, and it's also causing a bit of trouble for the party generally, because some people rather unfairly say that Reform is a one-man band, but nevertheless, it has a big, major, charismatic figurehead who does count a lot for what Reform stands for. And because he's in this tight corner, questions being asked about his friendships and about his funding, he's sort of not going on the television and on the radio. He's in a bit of a bunker situation. And so he was actually
asked, I don't know if you've seen the clip that's going around social media at the moment. It was a Sky reporter who was asking him, threw him a question as he was walking through a public event. It looked like an airport, but I'm not sure if it was an airport or not. It was certainly a public place anyway. And Nigel Farage was extremely annoyed and direct, and said, now go away, and referenced the fact that a member of his family had been approached. Sky News said it wasn't them, but approached by a journalist anyway, which you should never do. Of course, as a journalist, you should never, those people are not elected. It's not their decision to be in politics. But if a journalist did that, they absolutely shouldn't have done that. When it comes to Nigel Farage, he can be quite touchy. He clearly is very angry with this situation and the level of scrutiny he's under at the moment, given that clip that's going around at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. He's looking a little bit rattled, and this is an interesting thing as well, because Andy Burnham's going to come in for the same treatment now. Once he becomes closer to becoming Prime Minister, in fact, people have tried to get stuff out of Andy Burnham. The scrutiny will be intense, and so it should be. That's why we're all here.
I mean, do you think, not to get too kind of inside baseball about this and talk too much about journalism, but Andy Burnham's team have clearly made a very big decision not to have a lot of not to do a lot of interviews. They've done this Reddit thing where people submitted questions, but you can choose which questions you answer. They've done one broadcast interview, but since he has been elected MP for Makerfield, they've only done those 2 things. This guy could be the next Prime Minister of our country. Is he running scared?
A little bit, yeah, and he's not going to be able to run away and hide forever, because he's going to have to face MPs in the Commons. He's going to have PMQs every week. OK, he's got a bit of time to get his ducks in a row because we go into parliamentary recess. That's falling in his favour. He's got all summer to try and decide what he stands for and what he wants to do. But But like Nigel Farage, the closer you get to power, the more questions are asked, and quite right too, about your background, your funding, your friendship. And the big question whether Nigel Farage has done anything right or wrong with his friendship with Posh George, Cottrell, and his crypto millionaire funder, Chris
Harborne.
Yeah. It is whether he says he hasn't done anything wrong. Perhaps he hasn't done anything wrong, but it's just the transparency and the scrutiny that you have to come under to be a leader. And it raises questions about his judgment. He knew in 2016 that George Cottrell had been committed frauds. The issue arose during the referendum campaign. So it's a decade ago. You think, knowing, even though he may not have been an MP at the time, moving into Parliament, he would have distanced himself a little bit from somebody with a criminal record. And these questions will always be asked, and they're not going to go away, and he's going to have to deal with them.
Yeah. Can you tell me your thoughts as well about the senior doctors, this time consultants, voting in favour of strike action? That is bound to be just after the junior doctor strike has been now sorted. It must be another headache for Starmer and James Murray. And James Murray is the recently made health secretary after Wes Streeting resigned. He will be very happy that he got the junior doctors sorted. Now the senior doctors will be causing him even more strife as he's trying to A, sort that out, and B, keep his position in the cabinet.
Yeah, well, of course, the junior doctors, well, they prefer to be called resident doctors now. Their strike campaign went on for 3 years, and I've lost count of how many strikes there were.
Yeah,
caused a lot of damage. Waiting lists affected, no doubt. And now the consultants, those who are also members of the British Medical Association, the rather militant Doctors' Trade Union, are saying they want to go out on strike. Now, a lot of people who are working hard and paying their taxes will say, well, these people and consultants, they're in excess of £150,000, £160,000 a year on average. They're in the top 2% of earners.
That's right.
They're complaining that their salaries in real terms have declined by about 20%, 25% or something over the last 10 years or whatever. Well, that's happened to all of us.
Yeah, talking about pay erosion. It's happened to so many different people. Yeah, exactly.
The evil of inflation. And there was a report out a couple of days ago saying that under Keir Starmer, in only 2 years, the standard of the disposable income and standard of living of all British people has fallen, even in those 2 years.
Yeah.
So, tell us about it. We understand your pain, consultants, but, as we keep being told when they tax us, that those with the broader shoulders should pay more. Well, I'm afraid those with the broader shoulders can perhaps survive inflation eating away at the wages more than the rest.
A lot of people on much less money can only dream of a salary of 160 grand a year. I totally get that point.
But again, Peter, sorry if I may come back in. This is another issue for Andrew Burnham. This is going to be in his in tray. We're talking about all the other issues: the Chagos Islands, inflation, the welfare bill, everything else, international affairs. This is going to be another one that's waiting for him when he comes in.
Certainly. And just a final thought on the policing report there. And I mean, 87% of constables are not happy with the management of the force of which they are part. That's an astonishing statistic.
It is, and that just underlines things which a lot of us have been saying, was that it's not the police officer on the beat or the hard-working detective. It's the management of the police forces which is the problem. I think sort of like 8 chief constables are under investigation.
Yeah, current and former. Absolutely correct. Yeah.
And also, they are the people who are calling the shots and saying, let's go and knock on this person's door because he was he put a nasty tweet out, rather than saying, get out there and solve these burglaries. The police are there to, by consent, the police are police by consent, and they're there to solve burglaries, detect, prevent crime, catch criminals, and often they get involved in issues which are absolutely nothing to do with policing and keeping us safe.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate that, and also appreciate you matching your tie to your shirt. You're always a dapper snapper on this programme. Also, the flowers behind you are matched to your colour palette today. So it is a tragedy that the majority of people are listening to this rather than watching it, but I will tell them that, and if they want to watch back and catch up, they can see that, even if they don't listen to your words, David.
I did take my jacket off today because you were concerned about my health in the...
Don't want you overheating. Don't want you overheating. Much appreciated, David. That's David Whitting there. Dapper David himself, who's the former editor of the Sunday Express. What do you make of what he said there, or indeed his colour choices? 0344 499 1000. Very interesting text from Elisa in Chelmsford. It says, what's wrong with Nigel Farage being tetchy? Doesn't that show the authenticity, the sincerity of the person? Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point, actually, because we are... of course, always saying, you know, politicians need to be more human. And then when they show human emotions, we're saying, oh no, they need to control their emotions a bit more. Alex says, Jenrick is on manoeuvres again. If I was Kemi with Nigel Farage having a break for summer, Burnham is too busy because he doesn't have a plan. Conservatives have 2 open months and should scrap their recess and make hay because there's an opportunity this summer to make a conversation about them. Another person says, I find it staggering the amount of time talk is given Farage. A journalist does his job, and people saying talk leaning one way or the other is for the birds. It was a great piece of investigative journalism by the Sunday Times, who, as you say, reported on Starmer and many others. The beauty of talk is they cover all political parties without bias. Talk, although owned by News Corp, is an independent station. If someone has broken parliamentary rules, it's a valid story. End of. Please stick to your guns, talk, and report about whichever party has done anything they shouldn't have. Dee in Chesterfield says, why is everyone having a go at you this evening? Is it a full moon? I don't feel people are having a go at me, to be honest, Dee. I don't feel as if I'm having had a go at. I was a bit concerned about Melanie's message because I hope, I didn't mean to be discourteous to her the last time. I know we had a disagreement, but I hope she rings in again sometime. She may not, but I'd love to hear from her. Anyway, Dee says, is it a full moon? You have the patience of an agnostic saint with the heart of thinking and ask the hard questions when you need to. I would challenge them all to a duel to defend your honour, but I am rather ancient and crumbly. I will volunteer to give them an intimidating stare. Well, Dee, that is very kind, and the hard stare a la Paddington is often a very effective weapon. Susan says, my sympathies are with the person who reported footballs being kicked over a fence. Last week I had 5 footballs in my garden from one neighbour's children and a number of golf balls lobbed over my fence from another neighbour, which I feel are extremely dangerous. I had a row with the parents who came round to collect the footballs, not to apologise. Perhaps I should have called the police. Ruth says, I have a son who used to kick a ball over a fence. Once he broke a piece of glass, we paid and we sorted it out straight away. The neighbours were fine and lovely. Why can't people just be British and have fun? People moan that they spend too much time on their phones, but this kid is being told off for kicking a ball. It's ridiculous. And final one before the break from a person who says, Theresa May, with passing the net zero agenda through Parliament, introducing non-crime hate incidents, was a disaster. Anyone whose naughtiest action they think is running through fields of barley is unfit to be Prime Minister. Wow. OK, well, certainly I think she probably regretted that answer. But knowing Theresa May a little bit, that probably is the naughtiest thing she'd ever done. She's pretty straight-laced. But there we are. I think we'll have to disagree agreeably on Theresa May, who I have a lot of time for. But anyway, lots to discuss. We'll take some more calls, text, tweets and voice notes. If you want to get your call on the air, you let me know. 0344 499 1000. We will discuss the football as well, what happens now, and that Donald Trump red card decision. Stay with us here on Talk.
The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you, everybody who's been in touch. We'll get to more calls, texts, tweets and voice notes in just a minute. In fact, we'll get to them right now. Heather is in Girvan in South Ayrshire and has some thoughts on what we've been discussing this evening. 0344 499 1000 is the number she's called. Heather, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind about Nigel Farage? He's had mud thrown in his face before, even before the local and Scottish and Welsh elections. And same goes with last year before the local elections. Last year he still had mud thrown in his face by the left-leaning press. Has that stopped Nigel Farage winning? No, it hasn't. It's proven time and time again. It doesn't matter how much mud you throw at somebody's face, it's bound to hit back in their face fast and furious with this, because I know for a fact that when Nigel Farage and Reform did extremely well to get over 1,400 councils in the local and Scottish and Welsh elections. They have done more good in this election this time around, and they did well with last year's local election.
So you think he'll survive all this? You think this is just noise, Heather? He'll just survive all this?
This is all trying to deflect what's going on with the country, because it is a political witch hunt. It sounds like it to me. It sounds like a political assassination by the media.
Although Nigel Farage has not explicitly denied any of the allegations in the Sunday Times. He says he might take legal action. He says he's not happy with it, but he hasn't said the things that the Sunday Times have reported are wrong.
Well, he's got his every right to do that, because
but he hasn't done that.
I'm a Reform member, and I'm a staunch, hardcore reformer with this. We will always defend and we will always stick up for our Nigel Farage, come what may. We will not give in, because one thing about us reformers, we ain't a quitter, we are a fighter.
Okay. And Heather, I understand you got some other news for celebration this week?
It's my birthday on Friday, 3 days after Jeremy Kyle. I know it's Jeremy Kyle's birthday tomorrow. I would like to say to Jeremy Kyle, happy birthday, and I hope you have a lovely day tomorrow, Jeremy Kyle.
That's lovely. I'll pass that on to Jeremy.
On TV on Wednesday or Thursday on talkTV. And my birthday is on Friday, the day before England's match on Saturday. And as long as if England going to do well in the quarterfinals on the 11th of July, day after my birthday, and get through into the semi-finals, that will be my
that'll be your birthday present
gift as well.
Lovely stuff. Well, listen, have a great birthday, Heather. I hope you have a lovely day. Let's go to Owen and I will pass on your good wishes. I'm sure Jeremy Kyle is watching at this exact moment, but just in case he isn't, I will pass on your very good wishes to him. Let's go to Owen, who's in Hungary. Owen, what do you make of this?
Well, there's lots of really cool stuff going on. Congratulations to Heather there. She was a very animated caller.
Yes, indeed. I wasn't really asking about Heather's birthday. It was more about Nigel Farage, but I appreciate your opinion on that as well, Owen. I'm sure she does too.
Well, the conversation moved along. Like I can't understand what she was saying about we'll always be Nigel. I can't understand that kind of political loyalty. To me, that's un-British. As far as I'm concerned.
You can understand loyalty to a political leader. You can understand. I mean, someone like Nigel Farage, a lot of people, love him or hate him, and some people absolutely love him, like Heather, really likes him, thinks he's brilliant, and can do no wrong, but they'll be very, very loyal to him, and that's often the way with political leaders, isn't it?
No, I'm going to vote for him because I hate him less than I hate the others.
Okay, so that's the reason you'd vote for him. Okay.
What I called up and I said to your research, you and I have spoken before.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Thanks. Nice to meet you again. We should do Cast of the Week at some point.
Yes, indeed.
I don't think this mud that they're slinging at Nigel is going to stick as much as they want it to, because this isn't public money. This is private donations and people giving him money because they want him to carry on doing what he's doing. Now, if you look at the register of members' interests and the expenses thing, it's all Labour politicians that are top of the list on that. I mean, my good old friend Jess Phillips has done very, very well.
Although Nigel Farage is the highest paid MP, I tell you what, can I just put, from outside interest I should say, can I just put one message, Owen, that we've just received in the last few minutes to you, and let me know what your thoughts are on it. It's from David in the Cotswolds. He says, as always, great show. Thank you, David. This Posh George thing is very bad optics for Mr Farage. It raises a lot more questions than merely about millions being given to him as a gift. It is the mist that surrounds the reported gambles George Cardwell made, won or indeed lost, and it is reported everything was not all cryptocurrency. The reporter that broke the story did his job. He's a reporter. They report. What would you say to David, Owen?
Well, I would say to David that anyone who risks on the stock market or on cryptocurrency, they either win big or they lose. And this is the way that it is. Now, Nigel Farage was a commodities trader for a long time, so he knows how to hedge his bets. I don't think there's any difference between the amount of money that he's received from crypto successful people who want him to carry on doing what he's doing, and the Labour Party, who receive tens of millions from trade unions.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Labour has received loads, but the difference, and I'm not taking anything away from that at all, Owen, and we should scrutinise that to the same degree as we scrutinise Nigel Farage. There's some people who think we shouldn't be scrutinising Nigel Farage and don't think this is even a matter for scrutiny. The point of the Sunday Times investigation, though, was that this is not declared. Some stuff was declared, other stuff wasn't declared. Nigel Farage is under investigation for the 5 million as well.
Yeah, I see where you go.
And I wonder at what point we say, look, frankly, sitting here, Owen, the amount of money we're talking about, even £5 million, which I'd love to have but don't and probably never will.
Yeah, me too.
But we're in a situation where that is like a drop in the ocean of the amount of money swirling around, for example, American politics. So if someone wants to give Nigel Farage £5 million, it doesn't really matter to me. Well done, Nigel Farage, great. I'd love someone to give me £5 million, probably not going to happen. But, if someone wants to give them that money and they feel strongly enough to do that, that's fine. The question is not about the money.
Peter.
Question is about.
I'm a lower middle class working guy. I work in an office. I have a fairly modest income. If I gave you 30 quid, I'd expect something for it. I'd at least expect that 30 quid back.
But the point is as well, Owen.
Peter, give me a pint next time.
And the point is, Owen, if I'm a parliamentarian, if I'm an MP, and you give me £301, I have to declare it. Nigel Farage hasn't declared this.
I've just come back from a 2-week business trip in Paris, where we have a corporate credit card. Every single cent of what I spent on that corporate credit card is accounted for, and it has receipts with photographs, and it's signed off by my boss.
Yeah.
There is not a single penny or cent, whatever you want to call it, that is just, whatever, it's okay.
Yeah,
No,
and this is the point. It's not so much that Nigel Farage received the money, although there are questions about who he received it from and whether he should be hanging around with a convicted fraudster.
I just want to know what this guy wants in return, because if he wants, a free trade area, he wants Singapore on Thames.
But Nigel Farage wants that as well. Nigel Farage wants Singapore on Thames, doesn't he?
Then just say it. Just say it. Just come out and say it.
Okay.
Be who you are. I mean, Peter, you're a Christian like I am.
I wouldn't say I'm a Christian. No, I would say I'm agnostic. But anyway.
Well, I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
And I believe in speaking the truth.
Sure.
And if someone says, "Oh, Owen, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm doing this."
Yeah.
And if I'm not ashamed of it, I'll just say it.
Okay.
Owen, if I am ashamed of it, then I won't do it.
Okay. Owen, good to talk to you. As always, give me a ring anytime you like. That's Owen in Hungary there. Leslie says, Pakistan Airlines were banned from flying to the UK for 5 years. Labour cancelled the ban, so bring it back until they take their monster back, says Leslie. This is the story continued about Shabir Ahmed, I think his name is, who's the absolute scumbag with the Rochdale grooming gang who cannot be deported from this country under the current law. Elisa in Chelmsford says, regarding Owen's call, I'm much more concerned about the government sending £23 million to UNRWA than the peanuts privately given to Nigel Farage. And yep, listen, we've covered that story as well, Elisa, certainly. Nat on Theresa May says she certainly wasn't a great dancer, Theresa May, that's absolutely true. And Yule in Ballymena, who often takes me to task, who often texts in and says, Peter, you're doing the wrong thing and you shouldn't be doing this, has sent a lovely message. Says, excellent journalism from the Sunday Times and indeed your good self in holding Farage and Reform UK to account, says Yule in Ballymena. Yule, thank you for that. And the point is as well, this isn't about any vendetta from me anyway. You make your own mind up about the Sunday Times, you make your own mind up about all the rest of it. We're covering the story that you want to talk about. We have loads of people ringing in. We're going to take more of those calls between now and 10 who want to talk about this. There are loads of people texting, tweeting. This is a story you want to talk about. We're not having a go at Nigel Farage. We're simply asking the questions. And as I say, I'd love someone from Reform UK. Maybe they'll come on tomorrow night and they're very, very welcome to do so. We're going to talk about the football in a second. Football reporter Matt Hutchinson will be with us as the Trump red card row that could benefit England, and the Three Lions heroics in the altitude of the Azteca in the early hours of this morning. I was fast asleep. Were you? Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right then, let's talk about the football. Apparently there's this thing called the World Cup going on at the moment. Matt Hutchinson is a football reporter. Matt, were you up last night watching the game?
Good evening, Peter. I was indeed, yeah. I was on TalkSport duty from 7:30 in the evening till about, I left the offices at TalkSport Towers about 5:45 this morning. So it was
they got their money out of you. They got their money's worth.
Enjoyable one, and great to see England get over the line.
Definitely. And have you had a bit of a snooze since then?
I have indeed, yeah. A bit of rest time. I managed to squeeze in a little jog earlier this afternoon, and now back on the airways with your kind self, and happy to be here.
Well, there's a lot that's happened today. It's been a dramatic day. I just want to play a little clip of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who's been talking about his great and vast knowledge of football. I find when you don't know about football, it's generally best to just admit that fact, as I do, whereas President Trump, I'm not sure he's particularly across the nuances of whether someone should be given a red card or not, but he says he is. This is what he said.
And I'm a person that loves sports and was a good athlete, and I understand sports really well, really well. And that wasn't a foul. That wasn't even an infraction. That was two guys running full speed that happened to crash into each other. You can't take your foot and properly place it on somebody else's foot when you're going, no, these were two great athletes that got tangled up, and this referee, who is a little bit suspect, if you check his past. I don't want to say that because I don't like to create controversy, but very suspect.
Donald Trump, someone you want on your team. We know that he reportedly called FIFA 3 separate times. They've since suspended the red card, but neither Trump nor FIFA explained the legal basis on which the suspension was lifted. So my understanding, and please, Matt, tell me if I'm wrong, because I really don't understand football, but my understanding is that if you have a red card in any match, you automatically miss the next match. It doesn't matter about appeals, and all those things take time, but you automatically miss the next match. But that's not going to happen in this case. And now we have the FA in this country, the Football Association, considering whether to appeal against England defender Jarell Quansah's red card during the Mexico match in the early hours of this morning.
Yeah, it's quite a lot to digest, Peter. I mean, the first thing to say is, in my opinion, we've actually reached the correct footballing outcome. The red card, when I watched it live, I felt it was harsh. It was a natural footballing collision. I used to be a qualified referee myself, and I felt it wasn't using excessive force. And those two words, excessive force, are the threshold that you have to meet, generally speaking, in order to get a red card. But what I would say is there's been 189 other red cards at World Cup finals. Only once previously to this has a player escaped suspension. So that was one of the Brazil players in 1962. So I'm sure there were so many other contentious decisions that haven't been overturned. An exception has been made here, and the concern will be that, yet again, that politics is influencing football, and it is a real stain on this tournament.
And as a qualified referee, Matt, the worst thing for your authority as a qualified referee would be if someone was second-guessing it, whether it's, you know, an irate parent of a footballer or girlfriend of a footballer or whatever shouting from the side, or boyfriend shouting from the sidelines, or the President of the United States.
Indeed, and I've been in these situations before where you have parents shouting, maybe living vicariously through their children, giving you their not always respectful feedback on your decisions. I mean, in this particular case, we know, as you mentioned, Peter, Donald Trump spoke directly to the FIFA president on several occasions, urging him to chalk off this one-match suspension. What we don't know is whether that particular phone call or phone calls influence the decision to overturn the ban. Infantino's come out with a statement, Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, saying that call was made independently by FIFA's disciplinary committee. But what we do know, Peter, is clearly for FIFA, it's a terrible look optically, especially given that Trump is now saying, quote unquote, I'm the one who got this ban overturned.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Infantino is rather unhappy Trump's made those comments. We also heard him criticising the Brazilian referee, undermining his authority, and cast doubt on the integrity, the sporting integrity of this entire tournament.
It doesn't sound to me like a fair match for the USA anyway, because they're against two teams, Bosnia and Herzegovina. That's a joke. Let's talk about Thomas Tuchel and his tactical experience, and tell me what your thoughts are on the match this morning, and of course the problems or just the opportunity, I suppose, of Saturday night.
I think this match in particular that we've just seen was where Thomas Tuchel really earned his money. He came in under a lot of controversy, a German managing England on a short-term contract. His brief was clear. to win the World Cup. It was a gritty, backs-to-the-walls display, and you fear the worst, Peter, when your team goes down to 10 players, 10 men in this case, so early in the second half against the baying Mexico crowd at an altitude of more than 2,000 metres, you don't necessarily feel your team can get over the line. But I think it's a game we'll remember for years to come. The England players pulled together. Tuchel's tactics, particularly with England down to 10 men, were exceptional. Bringing on Dan Burn, having that extra defender to deal with crosses into the box, England getting over the line.
Tell me about...
And just speaking more widely,
go ahead.
It just lifts the nation's mood for a few more days, which is something we all need right now.
Absolutely. Although the mood may not be lifted by the fact that these players will be facing Eric Haaland. In his Man City guise, of course, he makes Premier League players quake in their boots. But how can England expect to stop him on Saturday night? Of course, he scored both goals for Norway to knock Brazil out.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt Erling Haaland, a massive threat. But what I would say is, player for player, I would rather have the England team than the Norwegian team. And I think the England players need to focus on what they're bringing to the table, not simply trying to stop the threat of the Norwegians. What I would say is Erling Haaland did look at his best against Brazil, scoring 2 goals, 1 header against Gabriel, the Arsenal defender. I mean, Erling Haaland's physicality was pretty frightening. It all shapes up for what should be a brilliant match. But Norway have other threats. The Arsenal captain, Martin Odegaard, who plays attacking midfield, will also be trying to cause trouble for England on Saturday night. But I think if you had told England fans before this tournament, a game against Norway in the quarterfinals of the World Cup is the only way of stopping you from getting to the semis, they absolutely would have taken Norway in the quarterfinals. So they had every reason to be feeling confident.
Can England realistically get to the final? And should there be a bank holiday? If so, Kemi Badenoch says no.
In my opinion, if England gets to the final, of course, as a sports reporter, I would always advocate for us to get a bank holiday. But what I would say is maybe the country's productivity, Peter, isn't at an all-time high at the moment, so I would fear for the economic impacts. I certainly think if England win the tournament, we should get a bank holiday and really treasure this moment, because across the country, there's so much division at the moment, and we need something that brings us together, and this England team seems to be doing that, and that's something to really cherish right now.
Matt, thank you. As always, Matt Hutchinson there, football reporter at talkSPORT. Appreciate you joining us on the programme. Ernie says, can you imagine if Keir Starmer made the same phone call to FIFA as Trump? They would have put the phone down on him. They probably just laughed, Ernie. And Ernie also says, take a look at a lot of politicians from every party. I can name a few who come across as really dodgy. We all know who they are, and I wouldn't trust them with my granny's pension. Compare them to Nigel. Nigel is squeaky clean. He's probably the only high-profile politician who's no record of ever doing anything wrong, says Ernie. Certainly, that is Ernie's opinion. Lots of other opinions coming in, agreeing and disagreeing. Whatever yours is, please do give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. In the next 15 minutes or so, we'll take a load of calls, as many as we can get on the air. We'll also talk to Petri Hoskin too. She is coming up between 10 and 1 with her show. I expect there will be numerous issues of controversy to debate with her as well, including in our talkback hour between 10 and 1. So if you want to get on the air with me in the next few minutes, use the break, pick up the phone, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer, talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Amy, who says, on the abuse of Jews at London Pride, has there been a statement from Sadiq Khan about it? Because I can't find anything. I certainly have not heard or seen anything from Sadiq Khan about that. Stevie has been in touch and says, I'm always glad to hear your shows. I will always prefer rich people who don't need jobs in politics, who do them out of conviction, rather than people who need to work but aren't quite up to the world of business. So I'm happy with Nigel Farage and President Trump. Do you feel the same way about Rishi Sunak, for example, Stevie? I'd be very interested to find out that. Les says, hi there, Peter. Do you think it would be easier to name politicians in Westminster or the devolved assemblies who haven't been knowingly or unknowingly associated with chancellors, embezzlers, anti-Semitics, misogynists, sexual deviants and jailbirds in their career? What does this say about the establishment that runs the nation? And Angie says, is it the sun and the heat bringing out the argumentative side of people? Good grief. Well, listen, if you've got opinions, I want to hear them. So that is absolutely fine. And let's hear a couple more. Starting with Karen in East Sussex. She's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Karen, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening. Yeah, I mean, I've been listening and we've spent days discussing Nigel Farage and the 5 million donation, and I get it, transparency matters, and rightly so. But as Andy Burnham prepares to become Prime Minister, shouldn't we apply the same scrutiny to the major projects he championed as Mayor of Greater Manchester? Now, most people have never heard of the 350 million KO data project in Stockport. It was presented as a flagship investment with an expected opening in 2026, which has now been delayed to 2028 because of electricity infrastructure.
So just tell us a little bit about this project and what it actually is, Karen. I'm interested.
Yeah, it's a project for a major data centre, cloud, AI.
Okay.
Andy Burnham championed it. Andy Burnham opened it. Now, I'm not making allegations. I'm just asking straightforward questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Who knew the project wouldn't meet the original timetable?
Mm-hmm.
Why was 2026 opening announced, and how much of this 350 million has actually been spent? And what oversight did Andy Burnham exercise once the delay became clear? Because if we're going to scrutinise politicians over financial transparency, surely 350
And was this all
million.
public money, or was there some private money, some business money?
There was some private money, and all we've had is demolition of that site.
Okay.
And since that demolition of that site, the shareholders actually increased their shareholding. So surely, a 350 million flagship project.
Yeah.
publicly championed by the man about to lead the country deserves the same level of examination. And so, as I say, I'm not making accusations.
No, sure, of course not. There's nothing you've said that I have any problem with at all, Karen. I think those are all very legitimate questions. I mean, they're great questions that I would love to ask Andy Burnham. Been banging on his people, as have so many different journalists, to get answers out of them and to get him to do a few more interviews. He's done one interview since he's become MP for Makerfield. One.
Absolutely, it's shocking. It's simply a call for equal scrutiny and transparent answers. 350 million, you know, if it's been delayed for 2 years, you know, where's that money sitting? Who's holding that?
And of course,
money?
these projects, as we know, Karen, often spiral out of control or get more expensive as time goes on. Yeah.
Yep. Who's holding it? Where's the 350 million being held? You know, how did that land become available? Was it easily transferred? There's lots of questions and scrutiny that should be being asked about this. The interest on 350 million is a lot more than the 5 million we're talking about. Who's holding it? Where is it? And why? You know, what discretion has Andy Burnham exercised, you know, since these delays have happened?
All very good questions, Karen. I would love to ask them of Andy Burnham. Thanks for your call, and you make some really, really good points. You clearly know that project back to front as well. Lenny is in Ashford and has some thoughts on the football. Lenny, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Peter.
Hi there.
Well, I think what Trump has done, obviously he knows nothing about football, he knows nothing about sport. And I truly believe that the only person that can come out of that a winner, if the player himself actually says, no, I had a red card, I won't play.
But surely every player who gets a red card, Lenny, if that red card is taken away, you say, great, I'll play in the next match. Every player of football at that level, well, many people like George, the 14-year-old, they just want to play football, don't they?
Yes, but I've never known that happen before. This is a unique thing that's happened in football.
Yeah, it happened in 1962, certainly, but it's very, very, very rare. And just on the football, Spain have just gone 1-0 up against Portugal in the 90th minute as well, just to let you know that.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. No, but what it is, I mean, this shows the true mentality of Trump, and he doesn't understand sport and doesn't understand football, and the team can't do it, and the management can't do it. But if the
head of FIFA can't stand up to Donald Trump, what chance is a football player or a manager or even the fans?
I totally agree with you. I mean, that's where it started. The man should have stood his ground and said, no, a red card means a red card that you don't play the next match.
Thank you, Lenny. Let's speak to David in Redcar, final call of the evening before we speak to Petri Hoskin. David, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, Pete. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. I hope you're well too.
Right. Let me get to one point. Right. They're all picking up about Nigel Farage now. Farage, he's got money. Right. Look at Keir Starmer. Look at his full front bench. How have they got so rich? I mean, Starmer came into politics. He was worth about 7 million. I think he's worth double that now.
It's an estimate. I mean, we can't know how much he's worth, but he's certainly a very rich man. Yes, certainly, no doubt about that.
And then you look at Ed Miliband, that lunatic. He's give all the contracts to his brother.
No, hold on, David. You need to be really careful to keep us both out of court here.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
I watch a lot, I listen a lot, I read a lot.
Okay, he hasn't given contracts to his brother. That hasn't happened.
Well, he has.
Well, David, it factually has not. His brother has nothing to do with contracts. His brother is the head of International Rescue, which is a refugee organisation. It's nothing to do with David Miliband. But listen, you're on a broader point, David, you're not happy with the scrutiny of Farage, or are you happy with it? Or what do you think journalists should be doing?
I just don't understand how they've all got so rich. If you look at the full front bench of Labour, they're all multi-millionaires.
Not all of them now, but they certainly have. I mean, they get good salaries as well. They get about 180 grand a year.
Well, a little bit less than that, if you look at it.
Yeah.
But how are they all multi-millionaires?
Okay, well, they're not all multi-millionaires, David. They're not all of them, no, certainly. But there are some who have independent wealth.
Lanning's a multi-millionaire. Starmer's a multi-millionaire. Ed Miliband's a multi-millionaire.
I mean, a lot of them have come from lucrative industries beforehand. Like, if you're a top barrister, if you're Keir Starmer and you're a KC, you're going to be earning a lot of money, and he would earn less money as Prime Minister than he would as a barrister.
Well, before he was Prime Minister, when he became Prime Minister, he was worth about 7 million. Now he's worth double that.
Okay, I don't know the figures of that, but yes, I'm not disputing that at all. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy. Are you thinking that their money doesn't come from...
They don't get paid enough to be that wealthy now.
Okay, all right. Well, okay. Well, David, listen, thanks for your call. Appreciate that. And that is David in Redcar there. We've heard a lot of really interesting thoughts, particularly on Nigel Farage this evening, and lots of other things as well, including the controversy over the World Cup. Petri Hoskin is here on the other side of the news, and just before we talk to her, a reminder that Spain have gone 1-0 up against Portugal in the 90th minute, so they're very likely to win. Of course, we will see if that match hasn't finished yet. It's still going on, is it? Still going on, is it? Okay. Well, good for Spain.
Yeah, good for Spain. I mean, it was, nothing happened until the 90th minute or something in injury time. But
it's Ronaldo's last World Cup, of course.
Ronaldo's last World Cup, and there's nobody crying out there for Ronaldo, I can tell you that. Yeah, but I mean, I woke up this morning, first thing I did was check to see...
Yes,
because I honestly thought that that was it. But obviously we won. But this whole red card thing, I'm becoming a football fan, I think. I'm not even that big on football, but I thought this is outrageous. This is, if you get a red card, you get a red card.
Yeah.
Even the team didn't question it. The American team didn't question it. The FA America didn't question it. So we're going to be talking about that because I'm fascinated.
Well, I think America did very well to beat two teams, both Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yeah, at one time.
At the same time, two against one.
You are so into the football.
Definitely. And geography.
And geography.
Yes,
and history.
And history.
And
all of that stuff.
All of that.
All of that stuff.
We're going to be picking up on the Farage funding, of course. And that is the
big debate tonight. Lots of people in touch about it. Yeah.
That's talk back at midnight as well.
What do you think? What's your take on it?
Well, I think we have a right to know what this money means and where it goes to. I mean, I'm going to be talking to Tom Brake. I love Tom Brake. I used to interview him a lot, probably once a week in another radio station. Ex-Lib Dem, and he's now in charge of the cross-party pressure group, Unlock Democracy.
Yep.
And I think that any single donation should be capped.
Okay.
I just do. I just think that if you cap it, then
what should it be capped at, though?
Well, I mean, that's for bigger brains than mine to figure out, but there should never be this sort of favouritism and this, if I give you 5 million, if I give you $1 million...
But there's no suggestion Farage has actually done anything with that.
No, I'm not saying